301. Gaze in the dark. Uncle Sawada, if we all get promoted to chuunin this time, will we be qualified to take A-rank missions? Obito asked, curious. Sawada Kazuya, the jonin who often worked in the mission hall and who was escorting them to entrance number 44, glanced at him. No, you'll be free to take B-rank missions, but A-rank missions depend on a jonin's authorization. Jonin Minato has the authority to accept those. Minato-sensei is on our squad, though. Doesn't his authority cover us? Obito pressed. He was a bit confused. After all, once you became a chuunin, you could lead a team. You shouldn't need a jonin to accompany you on every mission. Sawada folded his arms. It's different in wartime. Chuunin are qualified to lead a team, but jonin still carry heavier responsibilities. If a jonin is tied up with other duties, you'll have to take missions on your own. The exact decision on A-rank acceptance rests with the jonin. Kakashi thought for a moment as they walked. All right, since we can't go in yet, let's discuss how we'll act in the exam. What's there to discuss? Obito said, impatient. Find a team, snatch their scroll, and rush to Baki. There are options, Kakashi replied calmly. We can wander and rely on luck, wait near Baki and ambush teams that come by, or make noise to attract attention and pick off stragglers. The goal is to secure a Heaven Scroll and an Earth Scroll and get to Baki, but the tactics differ. Rin smiled gently. Kakashi seems reliable. I trust your plan. Obito silently decided he wanted to get better at planning. Seeing Rin's support and Obito's quiet agreement, Kakashi laid out the plan. On day 1, we search the surrounding area. If we can get both the Heaven and Earth Scroll, we'll head straight to Baki. If not, over the next 2 days we'll move toward places with abundant water and food. Those spots should attract other teams. The Death Forest has no shops. Teams have to provide their own supplies, so water and food are where people gather. If we still haven't managed anything after 3 days, we'll head near Baki and ambush teams that have already gathered both scrolls. He paused and then added, if nobody has another idea, that's what we'll do. Rin nodded. Kakashi took Obito's silence for agreement. At 2:30 p.m., Sawada produced the key, unlocked the iron gate, and opened the entrance. Go on inside, he said, and pass the exam. Be careful of the hidden mistnin. This chuunin exam is dangerous. Uncle Sawada, when we're done, you have to give us a good A-rank mission. Obito called back cheerfully as they entered. First pass the exam, Sawada replied, locking the gate. Inside the Death Forest, Kakashi positioned himself and Obito at the front, with Rin 2 steps behind in the center. The forest was 20 kilometers across, an enormous space for ordinary people, but for Shinobi it wasn't as daunting. They ran, searching for other teams. After about an hour, they encountered their first group. A tall, thin Konoha ninja stood at the front, flanked by 2 companions. Hand over the scroll, the tall youth said. Since we're from Konoha, we won't fight you. If you resist, I can't guarantee your teammates won't be seriously injured. He was older, senior by several grades, and spoken with the certainty of one with more years of training. He eyed Kakashi with a mixture of respect and caution. He knew Kakashi's reputation for being strong, but he and his teammates had the advantage of more training years. Obito and Rin he dismissed as inexperienced genin. Hey, don't act like Kakashi's unbeatable, Obito blurted. I'm stronger than him, okay? Who are you? The tall one demanded, gesturing to his fellows. Uchiha Obito, Obito answered, standing proudly. Never heard of him, the tall one shrugged, spat, and his 2 teammates spread out into a triangular formation to pin Kakashi's group and prevent any sudden escape. You should hand over the scrolls. This guy's strength looks like it could match mine, Kakashi said, shifting his breathing. The tall youth didn't believe him. He produced a kunai and smirked. Kakashi, threats like that only make you look like you're bluffing. He formed a hand sign and charged. His teammates followed. Flame breathing, total concentration, Obito shouted, throwing his breath control to the limit. He drew in a huge lungful of air and augmented his body with chakra. When the tall youth lunged forward, Obito vanished from sight. The attacker blinked in surprise. Could Kakashi's team really be that fast? Before he could react, Obito flashed behind him and landed a full-force punch. The tall youth flew backward, slamming into a tree. The other 2 were no better off. In an instant, both were also launched into nearby trunks. The tall youth coughed, pain radiating through his body. He felt as if they'd struck a steel plate. Fire release, great fireball technique, one of the other two blurted, preparing a massive 3-meter fireball. Obito made hand seals and began to form the jutsu as well, amplifying it with his breathing. The air around them shimmered with heat. Seeing Obito's power and speed, the tall youth's confidence evaporated. "We surrender. We'll give you the scroll. Stop fighting," he cried. The tall youth handed over a white scroll stamped with the word Heaven. Obito's face fell when he saw it. Great, a Heaven scroll. Useless. They're useless in pairs. Kakashi frowned. Obito had been too loud. Announcing they had a Heaven scroll drew the others' attention. The tall youth, eyes lighting up, said, "You have a Heaven scroll too? 2 Heaven scrolls are pointless. Why don't you return it to us?" Kakashi shook his head. 2 Heaven scrolls won't pass, but maybe you can trade it for an Earth scroll with other teams. 2 scrolls are better than 1, the tall youth protested. "I'm offering you information in exchange. I gathered a lot of intel on candidates for the chuunin exams, maybe useful for the 2nd or 3rd stage." Kakashi didn't immediately accept. Information mattered, but only if it was accurate. The tall youth rummaged through his pouch and tossed 2 small cards at Kakashi. Nara Shiosui, Nara clan. Shadow imitation technique, very intelligent and calm in battle. Inuzuka Midori, Inuzuka clan. Skilled with ninkin, reckless in a fight. Attached were small photos. Kakashi glanced at them, and then named 2 Konoha Jinin he had met in the 1st stage of the exam as a test. If the information checked out, the trade would be worth it. The tall youth produced the corresponding cards for those 2 people and tossed them over. Kakashi scrutinized them, found no problems, and agreed to the swap. A spare Heaven scroll for verified intel was a fair trade. "Thanks. If you don't get promoted this time, I'll give you information free next time," the tall youth said with a nervous chuckle as he took the scroll back. "We won't need it. We'll definitely be promoted," Obito declared, looking through the cards. "Good luck," the tall youth muttered, leading his teammates away. They looked badly shaken. Obito's punch had been harsher than anticipated. After they left, Kakashi and Obito continued their search. They didn't notice a figure watching them from the shadows, half in black, half in white, its gaze following the trio as they moved deeper into the forest. 302. Uchiha Madara's understanding of Obito. Why choose Uchiha Obito? "Uchiha Shisui seems more talented," Black Zetsu asked Madara, puzzled in the dim light of the cave. Shisui was 2 years younger than Obito, but had always been ahead in strength. Madara smiled, the wrinkles on his aged face deepening. "Because you don't understand the Uchiha," he said. "You only see surface talent. You haven't noticed what lies beneath. Obito is different. Most Uchiha hide their love deep inside. Obito's love spills over. It's enough to give to anyone who needs it. If you stir that love, he'll gain a strength that matches it." Madara believed that an Uchiha who awakened through love was a true Uchiha and that a fully realized Obito would not be inferior to Shisui. Besides, he added, Obito's personality is easier to shape. People who accept what they're told are far easier to manipulate. As expected of Lord Madara, Black Zetsu said with a wry curl of his features. Madara ignored him and returned to outlining his plan. "Obito and his teammates are doing very well in Taijutsu," Hiruzen Sarutobi observed, watching the 3 of them turn the tide on the monitor. This was the first time the chuunin exams had been held jointly with the Hidden Mist Village, and Hiruzen had taken it very seriously. The Hidden Mist rarely involved itself in the affairs of the 4 great shinobi countries. If Konoha could bring them into an alliance, it would be a significant advantage in the current unstable situation. "They trained diligently. I wasn't like that at their age," Minato said from the monitoring room. He found both Obito and Kakashi impressive. Obito had awakened his Sharingan early, already at 2 Tomoe, and Kakashi used ninjutsu with exceptional skill and speed. Rin Nohara was a competent student, but compared to Obito and Kakashi, she seemed more ordinary. "Being able to teach students who surpass you reflects highly on your teaching," Hiruzen chuckled. "Minato, you have potential as an instructor." "If anything, Mu Yue taught them well," Minato said, shaking his head. He knew their strength owed somewhat to him, but more to Mu Yue. Together, Obito and his teammates had already shown they could defeat a Jonin in the bell exercise. "Minato, don't be modest. Obito and his teammates have praised you a lot," Mu Yue said with a smile, and the two exchanged mild flattery. Both of you stop. You both contributed, Hiruzen said, stroking his beard as he glanced at the monitors and noticed another squad. This hidden mist team is bold. Do they want to attract every nearby team? Mu Yue checked the screen. Zabuza, Kasame, Hoshigaki, and Kurosawa's squad had cleared a large area, piled trees together, and set them aflame. Thick black smoke rose into the sky. Mu Yue wasn't surprised. Kurosawa had already openly announced his scrolls earlier, practically daring someone to intervene. In the Death Forest, such blatant behavior wasn't unheard of when a squad's combat power far exceeded that of ordinary genin. Besides Kasame, with a chakra level Mu Yue estimated around 7,000, Zabuza and Kurosawa were not to be underestimated. Their stats were well above typical chuunin. Mu Yue recognized them as the Hidden Mist's special troublemakers. If Kakashi holds off Kasame and Obito handles Zabuza or Kurosawa, their chances are very high, Mu Yue said, scanning positions. In a one-on-one, neither Obito nor Kakashi was likely to beat Kasame. Obito's fire release could be countered by Kasame's water release, and Kakashi lacked sheer brute strength. Rin wasn't pivotal to the outcome. She could mainly support and heal. Overall, Minato's squad was the strongest at this exam. Metkai and Kasame were individually formidable, but their teammates weren't on the same level. Obito and Kakashi were close in strength, and with Rin as a healer, that balance favored Minato's team. Because the chuunin exams in their world often held surprises, the cautious Mu Yue had used his appraisal ability when explaining the rules to check every student's stats, making no powerful intruders were disguised. He therefore knew the information of most teams on the field. Mu Yue kept watching. A grass village squad and a Konoha team moved toward Kasame's area. How lucky! It's the team with the Earth Scroll. If we beat them, we'll pass the exam, one grass shinobi exclaimed. Kurosawa, looking for a real challenge, was disappointed when he saw only grass village opponents. Just small village shinobi? We can't prove ourselves like this, he said dismissively. The three grass shinobi bristled at the insult. Don't underestimate the grass village. We may lack elite powerhouses, but we have skill, one shouted, drawing his tools. The trio hurled shuriken at Kurosawa. He dodged easily, then tossed shuriken back. Zabuza drew his long sword and charged. With a single sweep timed perfectly, Zabuza severed an arm from one of the grass shinobi. His teammates howled. Kasame didn't give them time to grieve. Chakra streamlining through his feet, he charged at the remaining two. Is this even human strength? The stunned opponents thought, their faces draining of color. Even 2 against 1, Kasame's taijutsu dominated. Kurosawa seized a chance to stab one with a short blade. The fighter with the severed arm couldn't continue. Within minutes, the grass team was wiped out. They're brutal. Good thing Shiosui made us observe first. Inuzuka Midori clicked her tongue. Watching the Hidden Mist trio slaughter the grass nin like nothing. Those who talk big without skill usually don't live long, Nara Shiosui said calmly. They, too, held an earth scroll, and Midori wanted to snatch it, but Shiosui insisted on caution. Let's detour and retreat. There's plenty of time. The first day just started. No need to rush for the heaven and earth scrolls. Aburame now has eyes inside the hut where they hand out scrolls. We have his intel. No point in taking unnecessary risks. Only hiding and peeking? That's worse than the grass village. At least they had guts. Zabuza called toward the thicket where Shiosui and his teammates were concealed. We're discovered, Shiosui said, frowning as he checked Kasame and his teammates' positions. After their fight, it looked like Kasame's group had subtly blocked some escape routes. Shiosui had thought they were searching for other teams, but now it seemed Kasame's team had seen them while fighting. Retreat, Shiosui ordered, and his squad flashed backward. Kurosawa threw several kunai, then burst forward with chakra to chase. Kasame and Zabuza moved quickly to encircle them, cutting off Shiosui's path. Shiosui knew he wasn't fast enough to outrun them. He chose to stop in a densely shaded grove and stand his ground. You've already got the heaven and earth scrolls. You can go straight to Baki and complete the exam. Fighting us is pointless. Do you really want to risk something so unnecessary? He said, trying to avoid battle. Midori isn't weak, Inuzuka Midori warned. If you don't stop chasing, I'll let Shiramaru bite you. The small white dog on Midori's shoulder barked fiercely. Aburame now, silent as always, released his insects to show he was ready. Pointless? Kurosawa sneered. The exam is about proving who's best. If we beat you all, doesn't that mean we're the best? His smile was cruel. Zabuza pointed his blood-streaked blade at them. Konoha Shinobi, you should be stronger than those Grass Village fools, right? He taunted. At that moment, Shiosui realized the fight was unavoidable. Shadow imitation technique. Nara Shiosui formed the seals quickly. The shadow beneath his feet shot out and merged with the nearest opponent, Kurosawa. The instant their shadows overlapped, Kurosawa felt something seize him. He lost control of his body. With Shiosui directing him, Kurosawa's arm rose and launched a short blade toward Zabuza. Zabuza, already wary of his supposed allies, immediately saw through the motion. He swung his long sword and deflected the blade. Insect wind. Aburame now poured chakra into his insects, forming a churning insect tornado that barreled toward Kurosawa. Controlling an enemy with shadow imitation left the puppet stiff. Sustained defense through that technique wasn't ideal. The smarter move was to lock someone down and then concentrate all fire to drop them at once. Fang over fang, Inuzuka Midori spiraled and charged, chakra surging as she spun toward Kurosawa. His expression went white at the sight of the black insect storm and the whirling human attack. He hadn't expected such a timid-looking Konoha squad to be both strong and decisive. Water prison technique, Kasame moved. Thick currents coalesced into a perfect spherical prison, enclosing Kurosawa and blocking the first wave of strikes. Shiosui's face stayed calm. He guided Kurosawa forward, intending to force him to suffocate in the water prison. Zabuza, unwilling to fight 3-on-1 even if he felt no loyalty to the others, seized the opening. Using the body flicker technique, he lunged at Shiosui. The shadow imitation broke. Shiosui drew a kunai to parry the blow. The clash of blade on kunai rang out, and Zabuza swung like a machine, relentless, precise, forcing Shiosui into retreat after retreat. Shiosui risked a glance at his teammates. Alone, his combat skill was average. He needed them to seize openings. But they weren't doing well either. Midori and Shiromaru were barely holding Kasame. Nao was struggling against the enraged Kurosawa. On paper, there wasn't yet a collapse, but Shiosui knew if this kept up, defeat was only a matter of time. Each of them was outmatched. If only they'd been more cautious, Shiosui thought. If they'd avoided the black smoke, none of this would have started. A dull thud. Inuzuka Midori was hurled back into a tree, splintering it. Shiromaru abandoned his attack to shield Midori, baring his teeth at Kasame as if daring him to come closer. Kasame chuckled at the display and walked straight to where Midori lay. Shiromaru lunged, teeth flashing, and Kasame's fist met him. The dog flew like a cannonball and slammed to the ground. White fur dust streaked and stained crimson where Kasame's blow landed. Shiromaru! Midori tried to push herself up, but multiple fractures left her barely able to stand. The scene of bond between girl and dog was wasted on Kasame. He drew his long sword and prepared to thrust at Midori's heart. Secret technique, insect cocoon. Now threw caution to the wind. Exhausted and hurt, he poured every last reserve of chakra into accelerating his insects, forcing a mass of parasitic bugs to erupt and latch onto both Zabuza and Kurosawa, holding them down. Shadow imitation technique. Shiosui sent his shadow at Kasame. Kurosawa had been caught earlier, so Kasame was wary. He backed away, using trees for cover until the shadow couldn't reach him. The shadow technique didn't create more shadow, it was limited in length. When Kasame put enough distance, it failed to connect. Calmly, Shiosui redirected his shadow toward Zabuza, who was busily swatting at the parasitic insects. Zabuza forced the insects off and exhaled a thick fog. Water release, hidden mist technique. The mist rolled out, blinding Shiosui. Hidden mist shinobi trained for dense fog. It didn't hamper Zabuza, but it made Shiosui and Nao's jobs harder. Nao no longer had the chakra to speed the insects hatching, so momentum slipped away. When the mist thinned, Shiosui was a wreck, sword cuts on his arms and thighs, clothes soaked with blood. He collapsed, unable to fight. Nao was half kneeling, drenched in sweat and drained to his limits. Kasame raised his sword to finish Shiosui, then a flaming kunai whistled past, forcing him to dodge. "Hey, you guys are going too far," Obito called, looking at the broken bodies. "They're out of it. Take the scroll. Don't kill them. This is an exam." Kurosawa laughed, foolish and gleeful. An agreement was signed before the exam. Killing is part of the rules. If you don't kill the defeated, you'll just let them recover and cause trouble later. Zabuza spat. A pampered flower, that one. Obito bristled. Do you think everyone in the shinobi world's as soft as you? Rin Nohara ignored their taunts. She knelt by Midori and used the mystical palm technique, green chakra flowing into the girl. Can you move? I've never treated damage that bad before, she asked. Not really. Midori's got multiple fractures, Midori admitted. But your healing's helping. I can feel it. Kasame noticed Rin's hands and barked an order. Finish them all. That squad has a medical ninja. Inuzuka Midori, regaining some composure, shouted up a warning. That shark-faced guy is dangerous. Be careful. The information caught Kakashi's attention. He produced shuriken and flung them toward Zabuza and Kasame, close to the injured Shiosui. No matter village ties, watching other villages brutalize Konoha comrades was something he couldn't ignore. Flame breathing, total concentration. Obito used the signal and pushed his breathing to the limit, strengthening his body. He sprinted at Kurosawa. Let me show you what a real shinobi is, Kurosawa snarled. Then come at me, Obito answered. He released the chakra he'd condensed and vanished in a whoosh. Kurosawa swung reflexively at the empty air, not realizing Obito's enhanced strength. Obito met the strike with his right hand, then counterpunched, sending Kurosawa skidding back several meters. Obito's move wasn't to beat Kurosawa, but to open a window to pull Nao to safety. He grabbed the half-kneeling Aburame and dragged him back. Thanks, Nao breathed. No problem. Heal up and watch me take care of these bastards, Obito said, easing Nao down beside Midori. Kasame answered with a surge of water aimed at the fallen Shiosui. Kakashi reacted instantly, forming seals and raising an earth wall, earth release, earth flow wall, blocking the torrent. Then, tapping into his lightning breathing, he moved with incredible speed and carried Shiosui to Rin. Shiosui was worse than he looked. He'd wanted the others to bail out early, but he was barely conscious now. Heal Shiosui first. He's in bad shape, Midori said, close enough to see the wounds. Rin nodded solemnly and set to work. This was a serious test for her. She'd only used medical ninjutsu on smaller injuries before. Zabuza watched Kakashi and Obito with contempt. You clinging do-gooders, do you really think two of you can take three of us? Kakashi's reply was calm but firm. Calling people foolish for helping others? You and your kind are the ones wrapped up in selfishness. Zabuza tightened his grip on his sword. You have no idea what the hidden mist does to people like us. Obito stepped forward, eyes burning. I don't care what kind of mist you are. I won't let you kill our teammates. And by the way, you're the ones carrying the Earth Scroll, aren't you? 304. To wield the sword for protection. The strongest one on their side should be that shark-faced guy. He's powerful and uses water release, which counters your fire release, so I'll take him. For the other two, try a few probing attacks. If it isn't working, let Rin help. Don't be reckless. Kakashi laid out the plan for Obito with brisk efficiency. Nara, Shiosui, and the others were badly hurt, but the front line still mattered. If they lost outright, everyone would die. I understand. Obito nodded, eyes flicking to Zabuza and Kurosawa. After a brief taijutsu exchange, Obito judged Kurosawa's taijutsu weaker than his own, while Zabuza's swordsmanship looked formidable. Kakashi had been ready to face Kasame, but Zabuza, angered by Kakashi's words, ignored Obito and charged him directly with his blade. Kakashi's expression didn't change. Battle plans were only guidelines. The fight itself demanded improvisation. He and Obito would have to adapt and cooperate to turn the tide. Clang! Kakashi flashed his white-fanged short sword out and parried Zabuza's strike. Both men had their lower faces covered, Kakashi by his dark mask, Zabuza by bandages, and every blow targeted vital points with a lethal traditional ninja economy. Each attack and counter was measured, skillful. Just as Zabuza thought Kakashi matched him, Kakashi, having finished his probing, concentrated his lightning breathing. Speed and strength surged. He pressed the attack and immediately put Zabuza on the back foot. A wound opened on Zabuza's arm, bleeding steadily. Kakashi didn't linger over that small victory. While he fought comfortably, Obito was struggling. Kasame and Kurosawa had both locked onto him. Fire release, great fireball technique. Obito formed the seals quickly, condensed chakra in his throat, and expelled a towering blaze. With so little intel, the Great Fireball was the sensible choice. Low consumption, high damage. Water release, exploding water colliding wave. Kasame sailed up, shaping seals and flooding out a vast torrent from his mouth. The enormous wave swallowed Obito's 3-meter fireball and put it out instantly. The volume of water even drenched Rin and the others. Fortunately, it was mostly force and quantity rather than concentrated power. It left them wet, but not broken. Water release? Water dragon bullet technique. At the same time, Kurosawa formed complicated seals. Using the torrent Kasame had created, he sent forth a thick, long water dragon that roared toward Obito. Obito dove behind the earth release, earth flow wall Kakashi had already raised. He could have used Flame Breathing's Fire Dragon Flame Bullet to evaporate the dragon, but it would burn a lot of chakra. Earth beat water. Hiding behind Kakashi's wall was the wiser choice. Rumble. The water dragon crashed into the earth wall, cracking it but failing to break through. Bang! Kasame used Water Instant Body and suddenly appeared in front of the spiderweb barrier, shattering it. Kurosawa then used ninja tools to restrain Obito's movement. Even prepared as he was, Obito found himself overwhelmed by the 2-on-1 assault. This shark-faced guy. His strength is enormous. Maybe only Metkai surpasses him, Obito admitted, surprised. The breathing technique had already boosted his physicality above the norm, so he'd underestimated Kasame's abnormal power. Kasame countered his fire and matched him in Taijutsu. Both enemies had come to kill, putting Obito under crushing pressure. Obito could no longer hide his trump card. He condensed chakra and activated his 2-tomoe Sharingan. The world went red and sharp, motions that had been a blur slowed. Kasame and Kurosawa's attacks crawled in his perception. With the Sharingan, Obito's burden eased. He could defend, avoid hits, and maintain his stance. But he still couldn't deliver decisive strikes while outnumbered. He's already activated his Sharingan. Hiruzen watched the monitor, surprised. If he remembered rightly, Obito was only 9. That such a child could use the Sharingan so early spoke to rare talent. Hiruzen inwardly praised his own foresight. An Uchiha like Obito training under Minato, an inheritor of the will of fire, boded well. Mu Yue, Minato, do you think Obito and Kakashi can beat this hidden mist squad? Hiruzen asked the two beside him. As Hokage, he didn't have time to know every child's capabilities. If nothing unexpected happens, they should be fine, Mu Yue said after a moment. The battle already showed the situation. Kakashi and Obito alone were holding off 3 attackers. Once Rin joined, Kasame and the others would be in trouble. I agree, Minato smiled. They should manage. On the battlefield, Rin had to stop healing and fight. Kasame, realizing Obito had only been buying time, shifted his strategy and began attacking the injured near Rin. Bang! Kasame's fist collided with Rin's ring, strength of 100 technique, and a terrible roar erupted. The shock sent the hair on both of them flying back. Kasame was staggered 3 steps, astonishment flashing across his face. He hadn't assumed his strength was absolute, but he didn't expect the frail-looking Rin to unleash more raw force than him. Some kind of ninjutsu? Kasame muttered. He refused to believe Rin's physical strength was natural. Sensing Obito's approach, he used Water Instant Body to pull back. Rin, are you all right? Obito shook off Kurosawa and rushed to her. I'm fine. Let me take some pressure off you so you can focus on that shark-faced guy, Rin said, shaking her head. I'll treat everyone later. I have to fight now. She looked to Nara, Shiosui, and the others. Shiosui, having recovered some, nodded. It's we who should be thanking you. Just focus on fighting. With Rin back in the fray, Obito felt the weight lift. Kasame still had the edge, but he couldn't finish Obito off now. Basic breathing, full concentration. Rin adjusted her breathing rhythm to amplify her physicality and engaged Kurosawa in Taijutsu. She was behind him in experience and raw strength, but Kurosawa was already tired from previous fights. Rin didn't expect to finish him. She had avoided using the strength of 100 technique too often, conserving chakra for medical ninjutsu. Her goal was to stall, hold him off until Kakashi or Obito could help. Why did he suddenly get so fast? Zabuza's face darkened as more cuts opened on his body. Once Kakashi increased his lightning breathing output, Zabuza had been driven into a disadvantage. No matter how hard he resisted, the injuries kept coming. You wouldn't understand this power. It's my resolve to protect my comrades, Kakashi said coldly. Seeing Zabuza worsen, Kakashi pushed the lightning breathing harder. He had held back early to conserve stamina. What if another team arrived? If it were someone from Konoha, it would be fine, but if it were hidden mist reinforcements, they could be in deep trouble. The battlefield was already chaotic with towering black smoke and clashing ninjutsu. As Kakashi drove his breathing to its limit, yellow electrical arcs crawled along his legs. Sizzle! He exhaled white mist. Arcs crackled on the wrist of the hand, gripping the white-fanged short sword. Half flash. Kakashi unleashed lightning breathing at full release and surged forward like a bolt. The speed surprised Zabuza. He tried to raise his sword, but Kakashi was already behind him in an instant. A yellow slash flashed. Zabuza's long blade split in two as a crimson spray burst from his chest. Thud. Zabuza collapsed onto the muddy ground, soaked from the water's impact. Why didn't you kill me? You could've. Zabuza looked up at the sky, wounded but not fatally. Because we're different. My blade is for protection, not killing. I could have killed you, but there was no need, Kakashi said evenly. He wasn't naive about the darkness of the world. He was decisive in battle, but he wanted to strike at Zabuza's belief, not simply take his life. With that, Kakashi didn't linger. He immediately moved to support Rin. 305. There wasn't a moment to mourn Zabuza. Kakashi launched his attack before anyone could grieve. Kurosawa, noticing him, lunged forward and shoved Rin Nohara back several steps to buy time and evade. But Kakashi moved with sudden, devastating speed. The surprise was absolute. In Kurosawa's hurried retreat, a razor-sharp blade nicked his left arm, leaving a long, bloody gash. Damn it, defeated so quickly. Pathetic, Kurosawa spat, clutching the wound. The fight had been swinging in his favor, but now, wounded, he might not even be able to handle Rin Nohara if Kakashi pressed on. You'd rather point fingers at your teammates than at yourself. It's a shame to be on your side, Kakashi said, brow furrowed. Kurosawa's remark about blaming others had struck a nerve. What a joke. Your attack caused my injury, and you expect me to say kind things about you. Kurosawa sneered, trying to stall while he bound his arm. Kakashi didn't fall for the ploy. There was no time for taunts. He attacked again at full speed. Whoosh! Using lightning breathing at maximum power, Kakashi closed the distance in an instant. Kurosawa thrust with his short blade, but Kakashi had already vanished from in front of him. With a sudden spinning kick from the side, Kakashi sent Kurosawa flying back. The short blade slipped from his hand and clattered away as Kurosawa slammed into a large tree. The trunk shuddered and leaves rattled. Stop slandering others and work on yourself. Those who only blame teammates never get reliable ones, Kakashi said coldly. This was their first meeting, and Hidden Mist had already left a bad impression. Kakashi felt compelled to push back against their attitudes as much as their strength. Ha! I admit you're stronger than me. Your team's stronger than ours. You're geniuses, but that's all. It wasn't your lofty ideals that beat me. It was your strength, Kurosawa replied through gritted teeth, forcing a mocking smile as he struggled to stand. He refused to be bested by a younger ninja who talked about teamwork. If he'd lost in combat, he would at least belittle them with words. Kakashi approached calmly. After what he'd seen, his own convictions wouldn't be swayed. He hadn't intended to kill, he only meant to incapacitate. How those left behind survived in the death-filled forest was not his concern. It seems I arrived at an inopportune time, a strange female voice said. Kakashi halted and scanned the area. From the east, a girl with long red hair approached, followed by two boys with bandaged faces. A sinking feeling hit him, his worst fear. Another team had come. He'd fought Zabuza cautiously, conserving strength precisely to avoid this exact scenario. The black smoke from their clash, combined with the sounds of jutsu and taijutsu, had been a beacon. When he saw the hidden mist forehead protector on the red-headed girl, Kakashi's heart sank further. He could only hope they weren't too strong. Two kunai whistled from Kakashi's hands, each finding Kurosawa's thighs. The wounded man crumpled to the ground, unable to stay on his feet. Mei Terumi stepped into the clearing and took in the scene. Water stains and scuffed ground, Nara Shiosui and others propped against a tree and nursing injuries, Zabuza and Kurosawa lying where they'd been felled, and Obito and Kasame locked in intense combat nearby. Clearly, a large battle had erupted. 3 teams, and things were not looking good for the Hidden Mist newcomers. It seemed Mei's team had arrived to find their village's shinobi in trouble, 2 against 1. Are they actually ganging up on us, Hidden Mist? How despicable, Mei's teammates murmured, sharing her displeasure. Mei Terumi, what should we do? One of them asked. Their ordinary rapport aside, Mei was the strongest among them, and with no jonin present she assumed command. She studied the battlefield, thoughtful. Kakashi spoke up, calm and practical. The fight's about the scrolls. Which scroll are you missing? We can give you either the Heaven Scroll or the Earth Scroll to help you pass the exam. His offer wasn't just generosity. He wanted to avoid a messy 3-way fight. If Mei's team jumped in, he couldn't guarantee the outcome. He only carried the Heaven Scroll, but he'd seen signs that Kasame's side held the Earth Scroll, so he guessed it would be available. Mei's hand went to her chin as she considered. That's tempting. We're missing the Earth Scroll. Kurosawa, hearing her, perked up at once. We have the Earth Scroll. Help us defeat these Konoha ninjas, and you can take any scroll you want, he said quickly. A new team joining would swing the battle. We're all Hidden Mist, Kurosawa added. You should know which side is more trustworthy. Mei glanced from the Hidden Mist man to the Konoha team. She favored Kurosawa by default. He was from her village, but his tone grated on her, as though he were giving orders. Then she caught sight of Obito's face clearly, and a private memory stirred, the strawberry ice cream incident. Mei's hesitance vanished. She had her own reason to act. Take out those Konoha ninjas, Mei ordered her 2 teammates, and then strode straight for Obito. Leave the others to fight. I want to defeat him myself, she told Kasame when she reached their vicinity. She didn't attack immediately. This was personal. She wanted to avenge her strawberry ice cream with her own hands. Kasame pushed back against Obito with a burst of power, then looked at Mei in confusion. He'd been a shinobi long enough to know it was unusual for someone to insist on a one-on-one, yet he didn't want to abandon the ally he'd just gained. If you don't leave, I won't move, Mei said, crossing her arms stubbornly. Kasame shrugged and charged at Kakashi. I hope your strength matches your confidence. This guy isn't weak, he called over his shoulder. You're the Hidden Mist ninja who bought sweets that day, Obito said, recognizing Mei's long red hair and remembering their earlier encounter. What do you mean, bought sweets? I was gathering intelligence, Mei corrected. She had only allowed herself the strawberry ice cream after finishing her reconnaissance. Intelligence at a sweet shop? What could you possibly be gathering? Obito wondered aloud. Whatever, Mei muttered, then recovered her focus. That day I was gathering intelligence. I don't want to pick on someone who seems foolish, but I must avenge my strawberry ice cream. Obito thought she was a little eccentric, but that didn't matter. Both of them launched at once into Taijutsu. Mei's hand-to-hand skills were competent, but Obito had the edge, a breathing technique augmented by the Sharingan. His sharpened perception let him read her attacks, and his superior strength and speed allowed him to both block and counter decisively. Within half a minute, Mei found herself on the defensive when Obito landed a punch to her abdomen that sent her reeling 5 or 6 steps back. This guy's taijutsu is strong. Is that the legendary Sharingan? Mei thought, retreating and forming hand signs to prepare a powerful ninjutsu, the one she used best. Obito, blocking her escape with 4-thrown shuriken, pressed the chase. Since his taijutsu outmatched hers, he closed in physically. Boil release. Skilled mist technique. Mei shouted. A thick white mist poured from her mouth, billowing out to assault the pursuing Obito. He'd seen hidden mist techniques before and barely took notice, until he watched the shuriken entering the fog begin to corrode and break apart. Alarmed, he used shave to put distance between them. Fire release. Great fireball technique. Obito countered as he fell back, gathering chakra in his throat and exhaling a torrent of flame, a large fireball aimed straight into the mist. What he hadn't expected was for the fireball to be swallowed by the fog. The mist slashed away at it until the flame vanished, while Mei's breath remained comparatively undiminished. Obito watched, unsettled. Mei's ninjutsu was much stronger than he'd guessed. If Mei's ninjutsu matched her taijutsu, Obito thought, this would become much harder. He could still beat her, if he had time and energy, but Kakashi and Rin were already in trouble. Through his Sharingan, he could see Kakashi being pressed, One hidden mist ninja holding Rin in check while another and Kisame swarmed him. I'll have to give it everything I've got, Obito decided. He drew a deep breath, gathered chakra, and prepared to push his flame breathing to the limit. He would use the most powerful fire release he could manage, the Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. End of chapter. Chapter 306, No Need to Mourn Obito, the Green Beast. A large amount of chakra condensed in Obito's throat. Under the enhancement of his flame breathing and rapid nature transformation, it became intensely hot fire as he exhaled. Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. Orange-red flames roared from his mouth, producing a firestorm that far outclassed a standard fire release. Great fireball technique. The expelled flames writhed like fiery serpents. That was the difficulty of the Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. Controlling so many streams of fire to strike from multiple directions tested a shinobi's skill to the limit. Obito kept pouring out flame after flame, and the blaze before him swelled, the serpentine tongues surging toward the advancing white mist. The mist that had previously swallowed the great fireball technique couldn't withstand such fierce fire. The orange-red inferno slowly pushed the white fog back. The once muddy ground dried under the terrifying heat. This one actually mastered such an advanced fire release, Metkai thought, surprised. In ninjutsu, she had never met an equal among her peers, yet Obito was not only strong in taijutsu but even stronger in ninjutsu. She felt as if she were facing an amplified version of herself. But unfortunately for you, you're using fire release. Mei canceled the chakra sustaining her boil release, stopped exhaling mist, then quickly formed seals and cast water release. As soon as she released boil release, Obito's Fire Dragon Flame Bullet surged forward. The white mist vanished, leaving only the river of orange-red fire rushing toward Mei. When the flames were almost upon her and the red glow wrapped around her, Mei completed her final hand seal. Water release, water formation pillar. A massive surge of water exploded from her mouth, instantly smothering the flames. The entire wall of fire Obito had spewed was doused by the erupting water column. Mei's face was flushed and scorched from facing such heat, but she held the water release steady. She had been bold. Standing relatively far from Obito, confident in her water release, she chose to counter with raw power rather than evade. Evading would have been difficult against such a wide fire technique, and would have opened her to taijutsu pressure from Obito. If her water release could suppress his fire release, she could seize the initiative. Damn it, does everyone in the hidden mist know water release? Obito muttered in frustration as the great blaze he had created vanished in under 20 seconds. Under Mu Yue's guidance, he understood the chakra strengths and weaknesses. Fire release is at a distinct disadvantage against water release. Unless he was significantly stronger, his fire would be suppressed. He watched the battle with peripheral vision, ready to find an opportunity to swap opponents with Kakashi. Fighting Metkai felt stifling, and with his Sharingan, he could cope with pressure better than Kakashi. If they couldn't win a 2-on-1 contest, he needed a chance to change the matchup. Water release, water dragon bullet technique. Mei reshaped the water formation pillar into an enormous water dragon. Obito stared at the newly formed behemoth, baffled. He'd never seen a ninjutsu transform into another after being cast. He poured out chakra to escape, but the water dragon was already too close. It slammed into him, sending him flying backward and smashing through 5 large trees before he finally stopped. Cough, cough. He was winded and coughed up blood, but he forced himself to stand using his breathing technique. Mei watched him, impressed. To be able to stand after that? Do you still have the strength to continue? Obito wiped blood from the corner of his mouth, glanced at Kakashi and Rin still fighting, and said with a smile, "Of course I do. My teammates are still fighting. What reason would I have to fall?" The words were as much reassurance to himself as to Mei. He redoubled his focus on total concentration breathing. It sped his recovery. It couldn't heal him like medical ninjutsu, but every bit of recovery increased his chance. When faced with a fully powered Obito, Mei was cautious. When he was badly injured, she attacked decisively. They engaged in taijutsu. Obito's Sharingan was still active, letting him read her moves, but his injuries made him sluggish. After a minute of exchanges, a heavy punch from Mei sent him to the ground. He sprang up quickly, but his aura had weakened. Do you still want to continue? You've lost already, May said, arms crossed. She'd calmed from her earlier anger over the strawberry ice cream. She didn't want to kill Obito. She only wanted the scrolls and to pass the exam. She inferred she had the upper hand. I can still stand, so why would I have lost? Obito panted. May rolled her eyes. So troublesome. Are all Konoha shinobi like this? Seeing May's restraint, Obito fell silent and focused on recovery rather than pressing the attack. Kakashi, watching the fight from nearby, frowned. Obito had been nearly defeated. Rin had the advantage but couldn't finish hers quickly. Kakashi himself had expended a great deal of stamina using lightning breathing and was near his limit. He felt they might be facing some of the strongest participants in the chuunin exams. They were being pushed hard by two genin teams when they had never been toppled so easily on missions. At the same time, Kakashi kept calm. There was still a glimmer of hope. If he could take down Kasame, the strongest among them, they might turn the tide. He resolved to risk his remaining chakra and stamina on one final decisive strike. Just as Kakashi prepared his final thunderclap flash, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. Damn it, ganging up on us. Let Konoha's green beast handle you. Might Guy had been watching, seeing Kakashi battered and two hidden mist shinobi teaming up, his rage surged. 8 gates, gate of opening, open, gate of healing, open. Guy entered a rock-breathing state and opened 2 gates, using the power of his breathing and the released chakra from the 8 gates to sprint forward. He delivered a whirlwind kick that forced Kasame and the hidden mist ninjas to recoil. Kakashi had never heard Guy sound so fierce. Even the green jumpsuit seemed to become cooler in his presence. This is a massive brawl, Shiranui Genma, running behind, reported as he scanned the area and counted more teams. 12 other shinobi were here. Go help Obito. He looks bad. Ebisu had noticed Obito's condition and agreed. Shiranui Genma and Ebisu threw ninja tools at Mei Terumi, forcing her back, then rushed to Obito's side. Mei blocked and dodged the shuriken and then saw the Konoha headbands on the attackers. She briefly contemplated snatching an earth scroll and running. At this rate, more teams might pour in. Obito, are you all right? Shiranui asked, keeping his eyes on Mei. It's nothing serious, just some broken bones, Obito said with a relaxed smile when he saw reinforcements arrive. Broken bones? That's a big deal, Shiranui complained. Rest, Obito. We'll handle her, Ebisu said, pulling out a kunai. Okay, be careful, Obito replied, sitting against a tree to recover. Her water release can change form. A water sphere can suddenly become a water dragon bullet. She also has a very powerful mist technique. He didn't try to act tough. He warned them plainly. Shiranui Genma and Ebisu were ordinary in strength, but Mei was not at full power after employing multiple ninjutsu against Obito. Holding her off long enough was all they needed. The one who could truly sway the battle, however, was Might Guy. Though Obito enjoyed fighting with Rin, the teammate who gave him the greatest sense of security was Guy. He reliably stepped in at dangerous moments. Obito kept using his breathing technique to restore his strength and kept an eye on Kakashi and Guy. Kakashi, can you still fight? Guy asked while watching the enemy. For now, yes, Kakashi replied. I'll hold that shark-faced guy. You deal with the other hidden mist shinobi. A long-awaited cooperative battle. Leave it to me. Gaiji, gave Kakashi a thumbs up. His breathing tightened as he gathered chakra. Kakashi nodded, swung his white fang short sword, and charged toward Kasame. After being suppressed for so long, it was finally time for him to counterattack. 307, the third gate, joins the set. Might Guy and Kakashi charged out at the same time. Kakashi toward Kasame, Guy toward the hidden mist Genin. Wanting to finish the threat quickly, Guy didn't waste a moment on probing. He went all out. To the hidden mist shinobi, Guy seemed to appear in a new place every time he blinked. So fast, he cried, flinging several shuriken to slow Guy down. But he couldn't even tell where Guy was, let alone strike him with thrown blades. Guy closed the distance at blinding speed. The mist ninja retreated, panic written all over him, but his pace couldn't match Guy's. The gap kept shrinking. Just as Guy prepared to close in, the hidden mist shinobi smiled and tossed a kunai with an explosive tag at his feet. If shuriken couldn't hit, a wider, deadlier blast should do the trick. Leaf! Great whirlwind! Guy shouted. The mist ninja misjudged him. As he launched the explosive kunai, Guy's chakra detonated in his legs. Using the multi-step bursts of Soru, his speed spiked, and he appeared at the man's side, delivering a spinning kick. The shinobi barely had time to raise an arm when Guy's devastating blow sent him flying. He landed right on top of the explosive kunai. Boom, the close-range blast knocked the hidden mist ninja out cold. With that threat neutralized, Guy dashed straight for Kakashi and Kasame. Kasame glanced toward Guy, and for the first time, his blank face tightened. His strikes turned more aggressive. He would even risk a trade to injure Kakashi. Sensing Kasame's intent, Kakashi shifted from offense to defense. Now it was Kasame who needed to be cautious. Guy's speed closed the remaining distance in moments. Once Guy arrived, Kasame immediately stopped being reckless. Taking on two powerful opponents at once would be suicide. "Kakashi, you can rest. I'll handle him for now," Guy said. Kakashi was spent. He'd already defeated Zabuza and then faced two mist ninja alone, one of them extremely strong. He was breathing hard. His stamina and legs were exhausted. "If you don't finish Kasame in 5 minutes, I'm coming back in," Kakashi said. He needed a short recovery or a later surprise could turn the tide. Guy pumped a fist. "Don't worry, I'll finish him." As Kakashi pulled back, Kasame concentrated and slammed a fist toward Guy. Guy answered with a straight punch. The impact, bang, sounded dull and heavy. Both men staggered 2 steps back. Guy's surprise showed. He'd used total concentration breathing combined with the first 2 8 gates, yet this shark-faced man could match him blow for blow. Kasame was surprised too. Aside from Rin Nohara's unusual strength, he'd never seen someone younger hold such power. "You're strong, enough to make me open the 3rd gate," Kasame admitted. Guy didn't hesitate. He opened the 3rd gate, the gate of life, and his chakra swelled. Leaf, strong whirlwind. He funneled his power into his leg and launched a kick, amplified by the 3rd gate. Kasame braced, pouring his strength into his arm to block, but Guy's 3rd gate boosted kick and total concentration breathing were overwhelming. Kasame blocked for only a moment before the impact sent him hurtling like a cannonball. Trees snapped as Kasame tumbled, and even the sturdy Sharkman spat blood, his blocking arm shaking. What's with that green jumpsuit? His taijutsu's that powerful? Kasame thought, his memory of the blow etching itself into him. Even accounting for fatigue, he believed that at full strength it would be nearly impossible to stop such an attack with pure taijutsu. After landing, Kasame formed hand signs and drew a massive amount of chakra. "Water release, great exploding water colliding wave," he roared. The technique was costly, and Kasame avoided using it casually, but now he couldn't afford to conserve chakra. Water surged outward and then compressed into an enormous elliptical prison, a watery world over 8 meters high. Fighting in water? Then I'll end this in one strike, Guy decided. He couldn't breathe underwater or perform his breathing techniques long there, so he planned to finish Kasame with a single decisive blow. He pushed his rock breathing to its limit, letting the 8 gates chakra flood him. He felt stronger than ever. As Guy burst into the water sphere, his power actually carved a temporary gap in the water, letting him maintain his breathing techniques for a few extra seconds. Kasame shaped a water dragon to intercept, but Guy's expression hardened. Noon leopard. The force Guy condensed was terrifying. The swirling water at his feet parted, and he ran as if on solid ground, driving his kick into Kasame with everything he had. The water dragon shattered on impact. Inside the sphere, the flow went chaotic. How is this possible? He can use taijutsu in water like that. Kasame's shock was total. His worldview shifted. Guy closed in. Kasame could still move freely in the water, but prior injuries had slowed him. He couldn't evade Guy's full-strength strike. Boom! A massive splash. Kasame was blasted out of the water prison. With Kasame's chakra gone, the sphere collapsed. Water poured outward in every direction. Kakashi watched with a twinge of feeling. Guy had clearly trained harder than Kakashi had in the past months. Kakashi had only chased Guy for a few months. Guy had chased Kakashi for years. The gap between them felt wider now, but Kakashi steeled himself. He had to make up for lost time and take responsibility for his past slackening. From the stands, others reacted. That monster Kasame, defeated by a jumpsuit ninja who looks younger than him? Kurosawa muttered in disbelief. Seasoned and older, he had respected Kasame's strength, and now his respect was shaken. Meiterumi, still handling two opponents effortlessly, watched too. If Guy wielded only fire release, she might be able to deal with him. She knew how to handle fire and taijutsu users. But if he had wind or earth release, things would get much worse. Originally, she had thought Kisame would be her toughest rival. Now she had to reset herself to face Guy instead. Obito cheered, slapping his knee. The intensity reminded him of their joint fight against Kumogakure Jonin. There wasn't a single unbeatable powerhouse this time, but two waves of strong opponents made the challenge greater. Guy stood over the fallen Kisame, grinning. "You were picking on my friends together? You should have asked me first." Kisame lay in misery, bones broken, every movement agony. He coughed up blood and managed a weak question. "Your name?" "Might Guy. A man who will become the strongest in taijutsu." Guy replied heartily and even gave himself a thumbs up. Kisame fixated on Guy. "I remember you. If I survive to the next round, I'll settle this at full strength." He couldn't accept being bested in his exhausted state. He vowed to repay it when he was whole. Guy laughed. "You want to challenge me? I accept." He believed in himself. If they fought again at full power, he was certain he'd win. Meiterumi felt the pressure rising. With Kisame down, she was the most obviously strong shinobi left from the hidden mist side. She could feel all the Konoha shinobi's eyes on her. The weight of expectation settled on her shoulders. 308. Appear unexpectedly. "You called me for help, but then you collapsed first. I'm not playing along anymore." Meiterumi shoved Shiranui Genma and Ebisu back and prepared to leave. Kisame's squad had been wiped out, and one of her teammates was down. Only 4 or 5 Konoha shinobi still had any fight left in them. Mei didn't want to be ganged up on by the Konoha group. "If you want to leave, it's simple. Hand over the scroll," Obito called after a moment's thought. His fight with Mei had been fierce, but it had felt restrained. Since he was injured, Mei hadn't pressed the attack either. Still, letting her walk away empty-handed wasn't an option. There were no easy endings. Because she had fought for the scroll, Obito intended to take whatever scroll she had. Just unlucky this time. Meiterumi sighed, drew a white scroll from her pouch, and tossed it toward Obito. If the scroll could be taken again, she stood a better chance of preserving her strength. She was confident in her abilities, but badly hurt, she'd be at a real disadvantage, and she might lose the scroll anyway. Since she was likely to lose the scroll no matter what, she chose to concede and save herself. Might Guy, who had been rushing toward her, halted. Rin Nohara broke off from her skirmish with a mist genin and ran to Obito's side to heal him. The genin, who had been fighting Rin, sprinted back to his teammates to check on them. Finding one still breathing, he started rescue efforts immediately. The battle was over. Kakashi let out a long breath and relaxed a fraction, but he didn't sit down. Instead, he began clearing the battlefield, collecting the Heaven and Earth scrolls from Kisame's squad. "Guy, what scroll are you still missing?" Kakashi asked, holding 2 scrolls as he approached Might Guy. He wasn't going to let Guy's team come all this way for nothing. If Guy's team lacked an Earth scroll, Kakashi would hand over the only Earth scroll he had. "We received an Earth scroll, so we're still missing a Heaven scroll," Might Guy replied. Kakashi handed over the white scroll, marked with the character for Heaven. With that, both teams had the required scrolls for the exam, and even an extra Heaven scroll. "That's great. Now we can go straight to the Baki," Shiranui Genma said, his excitement obvious. This exam had been easier than he'd feared. He'd been nervous when signing the consent form. After all, he'd only graduated a few months ago and was up against veterans who'd been out for years. Yet in just a few hours they'd met the conditions to advance. Shiranui felt clinging to a stronger ally had paid off. We'll head to the Baki once we've recovered," Kakashi nodded. Since they'd met the requirements, it made sense to proceed as soon as possible. "We ran into an incredible group of geniuses," Nara Shiosui said, having watched the whole fight. Obito's fire release and Sharingan, Kakashi's speed and swordsmanship, and Might Guy's taijutsu had all astonished him. It was hard to imagine how anyone so young could be that strong. "Midori thinks so too," Inuzuka Midori agreed with a nod. Her assessment of Might Guy's taijutsu was succinct, terrifying. Everyone relaxed and traded impressions of the fight. Obito, recovering under Rin's healing, boasted about Meiterumi's skill. She must be a super genius from the hidden mist. I've never seen anyone change one ninjutsu into another like that. I didn't even know it was possible, he said, trying to justify his loss. If Mei was a genius and he'd been caught off guard and not at full strength, then losing would be acceptable. You did great, Obito, Rin said with a gentle smile. He had played a major role in the battle, single-handedly holding off Kisame and Kurosawa at the start and pinning down Mei later, so her praise was deserved. I'll beat her next time, Obito said, already looking ahead. From Kakashi he'd learned the first 2 stages of the chuunin exams varied, but the 3rd stage resembled the ninja school's practical test, a single elimination tournament by lot. He wanted his rematch on the mat at stage at full strength. I believe you can do it, Rin said encouragingly. Obito smiled and prepared to praise her when a figure suddenly flashed by. Obito's pupils shrank as he shouted, "Rin, look out!" Bang! A black-clad adult shinobi materialized beside Rin and kicked the healer straight out from under her as she tended to Obito. You bastard! Obito ignored his wounds and struck back, throwing a full-force punch. The attacker simply caught Obito's fist, then flung him so hard he slammed into a large tree. The force cracked the trunk. Everyone froze at the sudden turn of events. It's another hidden mist ninja. Why is he alone? I don't remember him at all, Kakashi said, identifying the attacker by his headband, but puzzled. 10 hidden mist squads had come to the chuunin exams. Kakashi had a decent memory for faces, and he didn't recall seeing this man. Could it be a transformation technique? Kakashi considered that, but looking at the man's face, an adult in his 30s, made the idea unlikely. There were no older candidates. This wasn't a covert mission. No one had reason to disguise themselves for this exam. If every plausible explanation failed, the only remaining truth had to be accepted. Something's wrong. A non-candidate infiltrated the exam grounds. Kakashi's expression darkened. Rock breathing, total concentration, breathing, gate of opening, open, gate of healing, open. Metkai roared. He opened the gates, tightened his breathing, and launched himself at the black-clad shinobi, engaging him in brutal close-quarters combat. They exchanged strikes at incredible speed. The attacker showed no fear. He wielded a short blade with terrifying skill, and in less than a minute he'd left several jagged cuts across Metkai's clothing. When I was told about this mission, there was no mention of this, Kurosawa said, watching the Mist Jonin appear. If a Mist Jonin had broken into the exam site to attack Konoha Genin, Kurosawa's death felt all but assured. He wasn't afraid of dying, but he felt betrayed. If he died in front of candidates, it meant he hadn't been strong enough. If he was set up to die, it suggested something darker. Zabuza's face curled into a mocking smile. So this is the hidden mist. How laughable. He seemed unusually calm. Student-on-student bloodshed was the norm here. Violence and treachery were part of the village's culture. Kakashi, about to leap in, paused to ask Zabuza, "Do you know who he is?" Zabuza glanced at him. Akami Hideyuki, a jonin who came close to being one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. He wasn't joking. That name carried weight. Zabuza knew Akami because Akami had been his instructor. Among jonin, Akami's strength was exceptional. Killing a handful of wounded, talented youths would be nothing to him. Kakashi, Akami Hideyuki? Kakashi's jaw tightened. He ignored Zabuza's nonchalance and moved to help Metkai. By then, Metkai had been forced to open the 3rd gate, but Akami's combination of water release and precise sword work was pushing him hard. The pressure was greater than anything Guy had faced against the Kumogakure Jonin. Shiranui Genma and Ibisu tried to intervene and were cut down in the attempt. "So strong," Shiranui muttered, clutching a wounded arm. Standing across from Akami, he'd felt the presence of death for the first time. If Might Guy hadn't been there, both he and Ibisu might have been killed instantly. "This man doesn't look like a candidate," Ebisu breathed, noting the same thing. Kakashi joined the clash, and Rin hurriedly patched herself up before returning to fight. Even with reinforcements, it only eased Guy's burden slightly. Within 2 minutes, several of the attackers had been left bloodied. Kakashi and Rin, already exhausted from earlier fights, were in bad shape. "Stop resisting. It will make dying easier," Akami said with a relaxed smile, his eyes flicking toward Obito, who lay gasping not far away. Obito had been injured and struck again before he could recover. Every step hurt, but he knew he couldn't fall now. His comrades were still fighting, and the situation was turning against them. Is the Hidden Mist trying to start a war with us? Daring to do something like this? Hiruzen Sarutobi barked from the monitoring room, frowning. The chuunin exam was being run jointly, but Konoha was the host, which meant the Mist should have provided Konoha with the basic information on their participating ninja. The sudden appearance of black-clad Hidden Mist shinobi inside the Death Forest made no sense. Do they have your Flying Thunder God kunai on them? Hiruzen asked Minato Namikaze. Minato shook his head. If they had, he could have teleported there in an instant. During a previous mission against the Fourth Raikage, he had given a Flying Thunder God kunai to protect Kakashi and the others, but it had been used up in battle and lost in the rush afterward. He hadn't issued more. Those kunai were like trackers, and Minato didn't hand them out lightly. Who could have expected something like this to happen in Konoha's own chuunin exams? It's all right. If I'm not mistaken, my main body is patrolling nearby and should have noticed what's going on, Mu Yue said. Even after using appraisal to check the candidate's information, he wasn't entirely at ease. He had been watching from the monitoring room as a shadow clone. His real body had been patrolling near Obito and the others. Minato swallowed the retort he'd been about to offer. He could still make it if he dashed there, and Metgai's tenacity suggested he might last more than a few minutes. But if Mu Yue's main body could arrive faster, all the better. To be safe, the main body should receive the clone's memories, Mu Yue continued. Hiruzen nodded. Mu Yue, you're the chief examiner for this phase. Go deal with that Mist Jonin. Minato, notify Jiraiya at once and have him go to the inn where the Hidden Mist are staying and lock them all in. It was the sensible assignment. Mu Yue was responsible for the exam. If anything went wrong, it would be on him. Hiruzen also sent orders to gather some of the Anbu. He used the telescope technique to confirm Genshi. An elder from the Hidden Mist was still in Konoha, and he personally led the Anbu to find him. The whole situation struck Hiruzen as odd. Judging by the skill of those Mist shinobi, there were promising talents among them. It didn't make sense for the Mist to try a brazen incursion into Konoha only to grab a few genin and leave. And they'd even brought an elder and jonin. If this was the Mist's idea, it was either arrogance or sheer foolishness. Hiruzen put the questions aside for now. Whether foolishness or arrogance, he would get answers when he met Genshi. Mu Yue, having received the memories from his clone, didn't rush to eliminate Akami Hideyuki. Instead, he concentrated on the surroundings, sweeping the area thoroughly with his Byakugan. He could kill Akami Hideyuki whenever he pleased. The real question was who had made Akami appear here. The Death Forest wasn't a place you could just enter and leave. Konoha had set up a barrier to keep the exam controlled, and if the Mist wanted into the forest, they had to come through as candidates. Mu Yue had appraised every candidate before the exam. The transformation technique could not fool appraisal, so no disguised infiltrators should have been inside. Whoever these black-clad fighters were, they hadn't entered as candidates. They'd bypassed the barrier by special means. Mu Yue suspected this might not be the Hidden Mist's doing at all, but the work of Uchiha Madara and Black Zetsu. If the Mist were truly behind it, the move would be nonsensical. Sacrificing their best jonin and an elder for a few genin would be wildly disproportionate. Madara and Black Zetsu, however, had both motive and means. Sowing discord between the Mist and Konoha, even risking war, would create chaos that Madara could exploit. But if that was the case, why pick on Obito? Wouldn't it be smoother to avoid him entirely and let the chaos spread? Mu Yue considered Madara's possible goal. Perhaps the intent was to prod Obito's strength. His Byakugan found no obvious suspicious presence nearby, which Mu Yue expected. Madara and Black Zetsu were not easy targets to find. As Might Guy's fight worsened, Mu Yue's attention zeroed in on his disciples. If any of them faced a life-or-death threat, he would strike Akami down without hesitation. If not, he would remain hidden. It was a harsh stance, but Mu Yue had no choice in a cruel shinobi world. He could protect them once, from the shadows, but he could not be everywhere. Even Minato's teleportation had limits. The only true remedy was strengthening his students so that even if they couldn't win, they could hold out until help arrived. Leaf-strong whirlwind. The sword wounds stitched across Metgai's body hadn't dimmed his resolve. With Kakashi's help, he pressed the attack against Akami Hideyuki once more. Water release, great waterfall technique. Akami executed a massive water release, spitting out a titanic sphere of water. Water by itself doesn't cut, but in such volume, its impact was devastating. The tidal mass slammed into Kakashi and Metkai. Kakashi, drained of stamina, was swept away. Metkai managed to push through, but slowed considerably. Akami swam through the torrent, evading Gai's strikes, while adding another bloody nick to him with his blade. Kakashi was thrown to the ground, gasping. He had no strength left to maintain total concentration breathing and could no longer aid Gai. Shiranui Genma and Ebisu, already weakened, were likewise helpless and swept away. Rin Nohara, wounded, used the last of her chakra to stabilize Obito, putting her trust in him instead of treating herself. Noon Leopard. With injuries piling up, Metkai unleashed the strongest taijutsu he had left. He could use it twice in close succession, and this was the final chance. He poured everything into his legs and launched himself forward, a burst of chakra driving him against the current. Water Dragon Bullet Technique. Akami shaped the surrounding water and formed a gargantuan water dragon that barreled toward Gai. The dragon's head alone dwarfed Gai, its mouth wider than him. But Gai did not falter. He charged like a leopard, chakra aura coalescing into the vague shape of a leopard's head. With a thunderous roar, the water dragon's head began to collapse, teeth shattering, horns snapping, the whole form deforming beneath Gai's onslaught. "This guy is a monster," Kasame muttered, astonished that Gai still had this much left after fighting him. Kakashi, painfully supporting himself, watched with wide eyes. Obito, breathing as best he could, silently urged Gai on. The leopard tore through the dragon's head, but the effort left Metkai nearly spent. He was hurled backward by the dragon's body and crashed through 8 trees before skidding to a halt. "You're going to die anyway. Why not choose an easier death?" Akami taunted. "You really think you can beat me?" Metkai staggered to his feet. His green jumpsuit was soaked red. "There's no such word as giving up in my youth," he roared, clenching his fists. His comrades were injured or exhausted. He could not fall now. No one else could face Akami alone. He forced himself to attempt opening the 4th gate of the 8 gates, the Gate of Pain. With his training, he shouldn't be able to open it, but he'd once forced the 2nd gate in desperation. He tried again, every fiber straining. Open. Veins bulged. He pushed with everything he had, but the gate did not yield. Akami moved with deadly speed, using Water Instant Body to appear at Gai's side and kicked him away. "Persevering won't change the outcome," Akami said calmly, and continued his advance. He cut down Shiranui Genma and Ebisu as they tried to block him. Both men, watching Gai's repeated rises and falls, felt helpless. Ebisu, who had never ached for power for anything but the safety of comrades, felt a bitter helplessness like never before. Gai forced himself back to his feet and sustained his rock breathing, but the gulf in strength could not be crossed by will alone. In the ensuing struggle, he fell again. Seeing him rise and be mocked, furious heat flared within Obito. His breathing shifted unconsciously. Flame breathing, total concentration. Obito activated his Sharingan, and with a raw, furious charge, struck out with a fist wrapped in glaring flames. He neither isolated the flames with chakra, nor felt the burn himself. Whether by fury, adrenaline, or something else, the flame did not harm him. Akami, focused on Obito, sidestepped and slashed. The blade grazed Obito's chest, not a killing blow, while Obito's left hand erupted in a fiercer blaze and drove into Akami's abdomen. Akami staggered, surprised by the pain. He used water-release chakra in his hand to spray and dampen the flames, but the burning ache lingered. Obito didn't celebrate. He was already calculating the cost. This kind of mutually destructive clash would be risky for him first. Akami gave him no time. He closed in and left fresh wounds on Obito. "They're still trying." Nara Shiosui, pinned by injuries, watched and formed a reckless idea. As fellow Konoha shinobi, he didn't want to appear weak. He told Inuzuka Midori and Aburame Nao his plan. They nodded. If they were to go down, they would go down with honor. "Even if I die, Midori will die with some backbone," Inuzuka Midori said between clenched teeth. He forced himself up and used beast mimicry ninjutsu, throwing his weight down to lie prone and brace for what came next. Inuzuka Midori lay on the ground with the motionless Nara Shiosui strapped to her back, bound by ropes made from parasitic insects so he wouldn't fall. Using both hands and feet, she sprinted toward Akami Hideyuki, Shiosui still secured to her. Whoosh! Shiosui flung shuriken from his hand at Akami, but his posture was awkward, his throws weak and crooked, and Akami Hideyuki, standing taut and still, easily dodged them all. Water Clone Jutsu. Akami produced a water clone, planning to have it handle Shiosui. Getting caught by the shadow imitation technique would be disastrous. Obito, fighting with growing frustration, swore inwardly that he had to learn something to counter Mu Yue sensei's water release. Akami's water techniques made it almost impossible for him to mount an effective fire release attack. Obito felt good using fire release when he could, but Akami's water constantly ruined that. All he wanted was to fight with Taijutsu, but he couldn't outmatch Akami that way either. Metkai and Kakashi were exhausted. Rin had used her last chakra to heal him and was now out of the fight, and Shiranui, Genma, and Ebisu lay badly hurt. The only hope to break the deadlock lay in the few badly wounded Konoha shinobi they had rescued earlier. A water clone only possessed 1/10 of the original's strength, and though it grew stronger in water, even that 1/10 sent Inuzuka Midori scrambling. Normally she would have confronted it, but carrying an unconscious Shiosui, she could only flee clumsily, seeking an opening. When they closed the distance, the parasitic ropes on Shiosui dissolved and surged toward the water clone. Taking advantage of the moment, Midori tossed Shiosui off her back toward Akami's position. Shiosui formed hand signs mid-air as if preparing jutsu. The water clone moved to attack, but Midori lunged at it. Akami's main body, seeing this, forcibly pulled the injured Obito back and unleashed a thick pillar of water toward Shiosui to prevent being ensnared by the shadow imitation technique. What Akami didn't expect was that when the water release struck, Shiosui first transformed into Inuzuka Midori and then vanished in a puff of white smoke. Ha, isn't Midori's acting good? I copied Shiosui's hand signs exactly, Midori crowed triumphantly. The water clone, enraged, slammed that Midori, actually a decoy, to the ground. Akami, realizing something was wrong, tried to use Water Instant Body to move away, but by the time he turned to deal with Midori's shadow clone, Shiosui had already reshaped himself from a thrown shuriken back into human form and hurriedly formed hand signs. Shadow imitation technique. Their proximity let Shiosui's shadow quickly connect with Akami's, and in an instant, Akami lay on the ground under Shiosui's control. The water clone moved to aid its master, but Midori clung to its leg with everything she had, refusing to let go. The clone kicked her hard enough to make her vomit blood. She still held on. Only when a second kick knocked Midori unconscious did the clone wrench free and rush to rejoin its main body. Quick! Use your fastest ninjutsu. I can't hold him long, Shiosui yelled. Shadow imitation drained enormous chakra, and Shiosui had hardly any to spare. Akami was stronger than him. The window to control him was tiny. Obito, who had originally planned to launch the lower-cost Great Fireball, heard Shiosui and shifted tactics. Fire release. Phoenix Sage fire technique. He formed one hand sign and spat out more than 10 small fireballs toward Akami. But as the fireballs closed to within roughly half a meter, Shiosui's chakra ran out and he lost control. Boom! A blinding cascade of flames exploded around Akami. Shiosui nearby instinctively squeezed his eyes shut. He couldn't tell through the blaze whether Akami lived. With his Sharingan, Obito could see better. He grabbed Shiosui and dragged him back as they retreated. The light faded, and Akami Hideyuki reappeared, burnt and scored but alive. He hadn't even had time to stand. He'd crawled away as fast as he could, letting the water clone absorb part of the blast. Damn it, if only I'd had more chakra, Shiosui muttered, clenching his fists. Even his normally calm composure snapped. If he'd held on 2 more seconds, Akami might have died. You lot nearly managed to kill me, Akami said with a nasty grin. He hefted his short sword and charged toward Shiosui. Obito shoved Shiosui aside and surged forward alone. He had barely any chakra left, enough to maintain his Sharingan and a bit of breathing technique, but he couldn't risk using full ninjutsu. He could only lace his fists with flame. Even against a wounded Akami, Obito was at a clear disadvantage. Kakashi, leaning against a tree, watched and sighed. Shiosui's team had fought brilliantly. Kakashi was impressed. But seeing Obito alone filled him with unease. He didn't want to be the kind of person who relied on others to turn the tide. He wanted to be the genius everyone believed him to be. His body protested with pain as he took a step forward. He ignored it and took another, forcing his breathing into lightning breathing. After a few minutes' rest, he'd recovered enough stamina to enter the state. The breathing technique sharpened him, and his steps quickened. He concentrated, pushing his breath to the limit. Whether from his injuries or something else, he felt his breathing focus more keenly than ever. That focus brought a strange, hollow clarity. Then, unexpectedly, he saw inside himself. Muscles, bones, blood vessels, every part of his body was laid bare, and he could feel them, control them. Mu Yue's lessons came back to him. Master Mu Yue had spoken of the transparent world, an ultimate mastery of the breathing technique that let you see and command every muscle and vein. If one day a transparent feeling appears and you can see and control every muscle and vessel in your body, you have entered the transparent world, Kakashi remembered. He understood now how much strength he'd wasted before. He pushed on. At 50 meters, he tightened his grip on the White Fang's short sword. At 40 meters, his vision sharpened. At 30 meters, he could almost see Akami's muscles twitch. Mu Yue's power was real, miraculous. His father's lessons echoed too. When practicing the sword, remember two things. Speed must be sufficient and strength must be concentrated. Condense all your power into a single point of attack. When he was 10 meters away, he saw everything on Akami's body in detail. At 6 meters, the enemy, cautious despite his injuries, abandoned Obito and lunged, slashing with his short sword. "Kakashi, don't! Just lie down!" Obito shouted, panic in his voice. Kakashi had ignored him throughout the approach, as if drawn forward by a genjutsu. "Father, Mu Yue-sensei, thank you," Kakashi thought, but he barely registered Akami's attack. The jonin flickered into position and thrust at Kakashi's chest. Swish, a white streak. Clatter. Akami's short sword snapped. His arm gave way. Horror and confusion flashed over his face as he failed to see how Kakashi had moved. Then intense pain and the finality of the strike. Akami Hideyuki's body split before he could utter another word. "Kakashi, you." Obito stared, stunned. The powerful jonin who had given them all such trouble had been cut down in a single strike, as if Mu Yue's spirit were within Kakashi. Kakashi didn't have the energy to stand. He managed one sentence before collapsing. "I am the genius, Kakashi." 311. New Disciple Quota. The forest fell into a stunned, heavy silence. Kakashi's strike had landed, and in that hush his last words still echoed. How is this possible? Akami Hideyuki was killed just like that. Zabuza stared in disbelief at Akami Hideyuki's body, cut clean in two by a single blow. This wasn't some genin or chuunin. Akami was a well-known jonin from the Hidden Mist, yet he'd been felled instantly. "Is this the power of protection?" Zabuza murmured, his worldview shaken. He was certain Kakashi had not had this power earlier. Otherwise, Kakashi wouldn't have struggled so much in their earlier fight. If he could kill Akami so quickly, he should have been able to do the same to Kasame Hoshigaki. Yet Kakashi hadn't. They'd traded blows for a while. Zabuza couldn't understand what would drive someone to protect others so fiercely that they could release such terrifying strength. Kurosawa wore a bewildered look. "Is he really a genin? He must be using a disguise," he said. He suspected Kakashi was a powerful kana ninja hiding behind a transformation technique, pretending to be at a disadvantage earlier. Might Guy, surprised but pleased, gave Kakashi a thumbs up. As expected of my best friend, this was brilliant. Guy couldn't wrap his head around it. Kakashi had seemed gravely injured a moment ago, no overwhelming aura about him, yet his single strike had killed a jonin outright. Rin Nohara smiled softly, relief and pride in her expression. "I knew you two would succeed." She had no illusion she could end the war herself. Her role was to support Kakashi and Obito from behind. Nara Shiosui's face was complex. Surprise, relief, emotion. He agreed deeply with Kakashi's declaration. Kakashi seemed like the most dazzling genius at that moment. Obito hurried to support Kakashi, who was about to collapse. "Kakashi, are you okay? I admit, your strike just now was genius." Kakashi closed his eyes, too weak to speak. He had poured all his remaining strength into that last blow and was spent, but a tired smile crossed his face at Obito's words. "Rin, can you still treat him?" Obito asked anxiously. They had won, but everyone was exhausted and badly injured. Many could barely stand. Rin shook her head, producing a bandage. I've used all my chakra treating you, Obito. For now I can only bandage everyone. If she had any chakra left, she would have continued healing. She was wounded too. At that moment, Mu Yue appeared in a blur. Let me treat them, he said. Mu Yue-sensei. Obito brightened instantly. Mu Yue's medical ninjutsu was far superior to Rin's. Mu Yue formed the hand signs. Multiple shadow clone jutsu. 9 clones sprang up and immediately set to work, each using mystical palm technique to treat the 9 Konoha examinees. Mu Yue ignored Kisame and the others for the time being. Given everything that had just occurred, it was enough that he didn't bind and imprison them. You came just in time, Mu Yue-sensei, Obito chuckled with relief. With Mu Yue here, he felt safe, so much so that the presence of any mist village jonin, even the Mizukage, wouldn't frighten him now. I'm not late. Timely would have been stopping it when it started, Mu Yue replied, shaking his head. He wasn't emotionless, but he was rational. Seeing his disciples injured without knowing why grated at him. Either way, without your help, we'd have been in real danger, Obito said lightly. Both outcomes left their enemies dealt with and them alive. One path was simply harder. Metkai nodded and gave another thumbs up. Under Mu Yue's care, Kakashi's condition slowly improved. When Kakashi opened his eyes again, the world felt normal, no lingering odd sensations. Yet he didn't pause long before asking Mu Yue. Mu Yue-sensei, did something happen between the hidden mist and the village? A hidden mist, jonin infiltrating the chuunin exams and attacking examinees smelled like a declaration of hostility to Kakashi. Mu Yue considered the question. Hard to say. Aside from this hidden mist jonin who showed up at the exam, I haven't seen other mist ninja take action, he answered. Kakashi fell into thought. The motive was hard to fathom. Killing a Konoha genius, Genin, seemed an odd target. Hidden Mist wouldn't know in advance which Konoha ninja would be at the exams, and it would be reckless to send their own star. Rest. You were examinees. You did your best, Mu Yue said with a small smile. Even he couldn't predict how this would play out. He suspected Uchiha Madara's hand in the matter, but such talk could not be voiced. Madara was supposed to have died long ago at the hands of Senju Hashirama. After the clones finished treating his students, Mu Yue approached Kisame and the others with a serious face. Tell me everything you know, he commanded. He didn't expect much, but procedure required it. Sorry, I'm just a pawn. I don't know anything, Zabuza snapped back once he'd recovered from the shock. He resented Hidden Mist's higher-ups, but genuinely had no idea beyond orders to perform well in the exam and disrupt Konoha's examinees. My mission was to do well in the exam. I don't know why a jonin would infiltrate, Kurosawa said bluntly. Kisame's answer matched theirs. As Mu Yue had predicted, they offered no useful information, but Mu Yue didn't need them to. Once Kakashi and the others were stable, Mu Yue escorted them back to the central tower. Nara Shiosui's team, who hadn't yet collected the Heaven and Earth scrolls, stayed behind and continued the exam. Mu Yue didn't halt the chuunin exams, but he did dispatch Shinobi to monitor all Hidden Mist examinees. Any abnormal behavior would be met with immediate arrest. Inside the central tower, the students whispered about what had happened while Mu Yue checked his panel. A line of system messages appeared. Disciple Kakashi Hake's trust level has increased. Current trust level, 4. Detected 4 disciples with trust level 4. Reward, disciple slot +1. Mu Yue couldn't help smiling. That extra disciple slot was far more valuable to him than a perfect grade skill. If he mentored a child from a young age, the long-term benefits, new skills, chakra feedback, would be immense. He planned to return home and consider carefully who to assign to that hard-earned slot. There was no guarantee more would be granted later. Another message followed. Disciple Kakashi Hake has significantly grown in strength under your guidance. Reward, Earth Release, Lightweight Rock Technique, Proficient. Mu Yue nodded inwardly. This reward mattered more than the previous added weight rock technique. The lightweight rock technique allowed flight, a rare ability in the ninja world, usually limited to summon beasts or other uncommon means. The added weight rock technique had been a powerful earth release focused on output, but Mu Yue already had other strong offensive options. Flight would open new possibilities. Meanwhile, using the telescope technique, Hiruzen Sarutobi discovered the Elder sitting in a tea house in Konoha with several hidden mist ninja. The third Hokage placed most of the Ambu around the tea house, took a few elite Ambu in with him, and entered the private room. "Hokage, what is this?" the Elder asked when Hiruzen burst in, flanked by Ambu. Hiruzen sat calmly. "Do you know a ninja named Akami Hideyuki?" he asked. "Yes. He's a jonin from Hidden Mist and part of the delegation visiting the village," the Elder replied. "Earlier, Akami Hideyuki infiltrated the chuunin exams and attacked our Konoha examinee team," Hiruzen said, his voice even but his aura sharpening. The Elder's face changed. Hiruzen's composed tone couldn't hide the anger beneath. This third Hokage's aura was terrifying. The Elder Chamberlain beside the tea house's guests trembled at the pressure. "Hokage-sama, there must be a misunderstanding. Our Hidden Mist has no intention of hostility toward Konoha," the Elder said, calm but earnest. In Hidden Mist, the Elder held great power, second perhaps only to the Mizukage. He insisted no order to kill Konoha examinees had come from their leadership. "Then come see for yourself," Hiruzen said. He led the Elder out, past the Anbu surrounding the tea house, down to the Forest of Death, where there were surveillance records, and Akami Hideyuki's corpse. Seeing the Anbu and the evidence convinced the Elder the incident had really happened. Konoha would not have staged such a response lightly, not while already at odds with two other major villages. Who would do this? Could it be those hawk-eyed people? The Elder wondered inwardly. He didn't want a conflict with Konoha, especially not while he was visiting there. At the central tower, Hiruzen replayed the surveillance footage for the Elder, Akami repeatedly attacking Obito and the others. After watching the evidence, the Elder bowed deeply. "I'm deeply sorry this occurred," he said, handing over his cane to a Mist Jonin. "But I can confirm this has nothing to do with Hidden Mist. Akami must be a spy from another village, sent to destroy the friendship between our villages." Hiruzen produced the sealed scroll containing Akami Hideyuki's body, and Mu Yue handed it over. Whether Akami had acted on orders or been turned could not be decided by words alone. The body's memories could reveal more. Hiruzen called for the Yamanaka clan head to use their clan's secret technique to examine Akami's mind. If Konoha could discover who had ordered the attack, the Elder might even thank them. He could purge the traitors when he returned. That confidence only made Hiruzen more suspicious. The Yamanaka clan head placed his hand on Akami's head and began the technique. Though Akami had been cut in two, so long as the brain was intact, memories could be viewed. But the Yamanaka faltered, opened his eyes, and reported, "Third Hokage-sama, his brain has been destroyed by a jutsu. We cannot access his memories." The room fell into a numb, uneasy silence. The source of the attack remained unresolved. Silence fell in the monitoring room. Gengetsu let out a quiet breath of relief. If the memory couldn't be checked, the matter was simple. He could insist Akami Hideyuki was a spy and a traitor. He watched Hiruzen Sarutobi, whose face gave nothing away. Gengetsu knew the rest depended entirely on how Hiruzen wanted to handle it. If Konoha chose to press the issue, insisting Akami had been sent by the Hidden Mist, there would be no way to stop them. But whether it escalated into war was another matter. That choice lay with Hiruzen. Before Gengetsu could think further, the door slammed open. Danzo strode in flanked by two root ninja. "How dare a Hidden Mist shinobi try to assassinate a Konoha prodigy?" Danzo barked the moment he entered. "If Hidden Mist wants war, we will fight to the last." He launched into a tirade as if the Hidden Mist had officially declared hostilities. Gengetsu remained calm and repeated what had happened, stressing that Akami Hideyuki had been a Hidden Mist ninja. Danzo wouldn't hear it. "His brain was damaged by a jutsu. Doesn't mean he's a spy. Maybe your village is trying to cover up something yourselves," he snapped. "If you want to clear this up, let every one of your Hidden Mist ninjas submit to a memory inspection. If you have nothing to hide, I will personally apologize." "Elder Shimura, are you serious? I will never agree to that," Gengetsu said, his composure thinning. Danzo's suggestion was ridiculously optimistic. Yes, checking memories would prove someone's innocence, but it would also reveal everything: Hidden Mist's secret techniques, training methods, and other confidential matters. As an elder, Gengetsu carried many of those secrets. He would rather destroy his own memories than let Konoha rifle through them. The jonin accompanying him would feel the same. For Hidden Mist to allow such a search would be to hand Konoha its entire repository of secrets free of charge. Danzo's apology was meaningless in comparison. Feeling guilty? Danzo asked, his gaze cold. My conscience is clear on this, but I will not allow Hidden Mist's secrets to be exposed, Gengetsu replied evenly. Don't worry, Konoha ninja are the most trustworthy. They won't look where they shouldn't, Danzo said. Gengetsu smiled outwardly while sneering inwardly. If he really believed Danzo, he wouldn't be an elder. No one would pass up the chance to peek at free confidential information. He refused Danzo's demand, and Danzo pushed back, insisting that Gengetsu's refusal proved they had something to hide. There are many suspicious points in this case. Directly checking Elder Gengetsu's memories is somewhat inappropriate, Hiruzen interjected. But it is the fastest, most accurate way, Danzo protested. Mu Yue watched silently, piecing things together. Konoha didn't want war right now. They already had Iwagakure and the Hidden Cloud on their agendas. Even Danzo wasn't eager to fight 3 great villages at once, but Konoha would not swallow the insult. Whether Akami was a spy or not mattered less than the fact that he had died under the Hidden Mist's registration. Konoha would not let Gengetsu and his party leave easily. At minimum, they would leverage the incident to extract concessions. Danzo and Hiruzen were playing good cop, bad cop. Danzo proposed an intolerable solution. Hiruzen would then step in with something less harsh but still advantageous to Konoha. The monitoring room wasn't the place for a full negotiation, so Hiruzen and Gengetsu left for a conference room. Mu Yue left a shadow clone behind to keep watching the surveillance, while his main body went to the Baki's mess hall for dinner. The second stage of the chuunin exams lasted 5 days. During that time, both examinees and proctors had to remain in the Forest of Death. Even if an examinee completed the requirements and arrived at the Baki on the first day, they still had to stay until the end. After the stage finished, rules for the third stage would be explained, and if too many candidates passed the second stage, additional eliminations could be LD to bring the numbers and quality in line. The third stage would be seen by many officials, nobles, and wealthy merchants, so Konoha wanted a spectacle, both in quantity and in quality. Large scams like this were not always run this way. Inviting dignitaries twice a year would be excessive. After dinner, Obito looked at Mu Yue. Mu Yue-sensei, don't you find other people's food bland after tasting yours? Mu Yue smiled. It's fine. I can't cook every meal, after all. Food wasn't much on his mind lately. Before transmigrating, he'd enjoyed sampling local cuisines during his travels. Now, in this harsh world of feudal cruelties and endless ninja conflicts, such leisurely pursuits felt inappropriate. If you want, I'll make lunch for you tomorrow, Mu Yue offered, seeing right through Obito. Heh, Mu Yue-sensei, you really understand me. Obito beamed. Kakashi then described his experience. I think I entered that transparent world state you mentioned today. I don't know how. It happened when I was exhausted and in pain. Suddenly, I could see my body and the enemy's body clearly. But now that I've recovered, I can't reach it again. My senses are sharper than before, though. You did enter the transparent world, but you haven't truly mastered it, Mu Yue explained. You slipped into it under extreme circumstances. That makes it easier for you to master it, but you still need to strengthen your breathing technique and keep searching for the feeling of activating the transparent world. Kakashi's sudden strike had surprised even Mu Yue. He had been ready to step in and finish Akami Hideyuki himself, but Kakashi had walked up and killed him with a single blow. Skills, lightning breathing. Beginner, 499-500. Transparent world. Beginner, 20-100. Kakashi's breathing proficiency had shot up, almost matching disciples who had started earlier, just shy of the proficient level. Mu Yue estimated he still had a long grind ahead. Kakashi's big jump was due to an increase in his breathing technique's potential, but the constant state required sustaining a reduced full concentration all day, something Kakashi wasn't yet capable of. Still, his transparent world already showed clear progress. The mark and transparent world are derivative skills of breathing techniques. They often appear automatically at certain thresholds, though prodigies can awaken them sooner. I understand, Kakashi said, determined to devote himself to breathing training. He had experienced the transparent world once and knew its power. Master it fully, and he could leave his father in the dust. "What are you two talking about? What transparent world?" Obito asked, perplexed. Mu Yue had only explained the transparent world to Kakashi while trying to solve Kakashi's problem. The other students hadn't been told. With everyone present, he briefly explained the transparent world as the ultimate breathing technique state. "So I thought Kakashi was possessed by you and learned some new skill," Obito joked. "Teacher Mu Yue, can I learn it?" "Most likely not right now," Mu Yue said. Kakashi's awakening was a fluke of unique circumstances. This is something that normally requires breathing technique cultivated to perfection. You and the others have only been practicing for a year. You haven't even reached the proficient level. Obito's face fell a little. "It's fine. I still have the Sharingan, which Kakashi can't have," he quickly consoled himself. "But Obito, didn't your breathing change during the fight? You did get something." Mu Yue patted him. "Name Uchiha Obito. Skills Flame Breathing. Beginner 497-500. Flame Breathing Mark. Begin 100. Like the transparent world, the localized mark could also be awakened early. The mark mostly burned chakra, so it wasn't as demanding physically. The difference between Kakashi and Obito in that battle wasn't so much that transparent world was vastly superior as that the two abilities had different advantages. The mark's drawback was heavy chakra consumption. Obito had been exhausted, so his chakra was nearly depleted and he couldn't fully enter the mark's true state. He was tougher and couldn't burn himself, but he hadn't accessed the full power Kakashi had in the transparent world. "If you train hard, you can enter the flame-breathing chakra mode early," Mu Yue said, giving the mark a more technical name. "When you do, all fire release will require no hand seals, and your fire release power will greatly increase." Obito nodded eagerly, already picturing himself a blazing cannon against Kakashi. "Both of you have made excellent progress," Metkai said, giving Kakashi and Obito a thumbs up. "You just need to keep training. Guy, focus on constant state training. You can put the 8 gates aside for now," Mu Yue advised, suggesting Guy's next steps. Though Kakashi and Obito had advanced, a one-on-one outcome was still uncertain. Rock breathing plus the 8 gates was brutally straightforward and powerful. Guy flashed his bright grin with complete confidence. Mu Yue chatted with his students a while longer, then got to work. As chief examiner for the second stage, he couldn't slack off. Before leaving, he shared cultivation insights about the transparent world and the mark with Kakashi and Obito. Knowing his disciples could earn great rewards at trust level 4, Mu Yue gifted Kakashi a training manual first, then Obito. "You gifted your disciple the transparent world training manual. Your disciple is extremely grateful and received a super critical reward, water breathing, perfect level." Mu Yue stared at the system pop up, stunned. He hadn't expected the system to drop the water breathing he'd been developing. Sorting through the water breathing memories in his head, he realized his approach to breathing techniques had been sound, with only minor differences. Comparing what he'd envisioned with the perfect level water breathing he'd just received gave him new insights. "This is even better. Now I can focus on researching sealing techniques," Mu Yue thought. A perfect level breathing technique was rarer than a perfect level ninjutsu and saved him time. Each breathing technique had its own flavor. Water breathing cost less chakra and lasted longer, and it enhanced chakra shape transformation, making water release more versatile. Reaching the perfect level automatically granted comprehension of the transparent world. Mu Yue already had a perfect lightning breathing, and after another breathing reached perfect level, he noticed subtle changes in his own transparent world. He wondered what a localized sun breathing might be like, likely a stronger, fire-related style, but that was for later. That night, Obito woke in an unfamiliar room and found Rin Nohara by a large French window. "Rin, you're still up." "Too much happened today. I can't sleep," Rin replied with a small smile. "It does feel like everyone was amazing out there. Metkai took on Kisame and held Akami back. Kakashi, he ended it in one strike. Even Nara Shiosui's team helped turn the tide," Obito said, walking to stand beside her. Rin looked at the bright moon and sighed. "If I were stronger, it wouldn't have been so hard." Obito squeezed her shoulder. "You were critical, Rin." Without your healing, we would have collapsed. You used your last chakra to help me and the others recover. That's a big contribution. Rin admitted she felt powerless watching the others deal heavy damage while she ran out of chakra. If Kakashi hadn't erupted at the last moment, she dreaded what could have happened. I didn't defeat anyone, and I don't feel like I healed much, she said softly. Even so, you're already excellent. I don't know any other chuunin candidate who's even learned the mystical palm technique. Mu Yue said you have great talent in medical ninjutsu, and you're just starting, Obito encouraged. He always believed in her. Remember how terrible I was when I first entered ninja school? I scored 5 on the theory exam. Now I pulled 80 in the chuunin exams theory. Guy used to lose to Kakashi every time, but he ended up beating him. Nothing's impossible. Rin smiled at the memory of Obito's 5-point score, then looked at him with renewed calm. I'll keep trying, she said. Obito punched a fist to his chest. Believe in yourself. Believe in Mu Yue-sensei. Rin nodded and returned his smile. No text for this chapter. Let's proceed to the next chapter. Chapter 314, the chuunin exam comes to an end. When Obito learned who Rin Nohara would face, his attention turned to his own opponent. He was number 9. By the draw, his first-round foe would be number 10. It's Asuma. He recognized the name and finally saw Asuma Sarutobi among the examinees. Asuma's eyes met his. He approached with a serious look. Obito, he said, you must give it your all. You're strong, but I'm carrying my teammates' hopes. I won't lose. The three of them had once dreamed together of becoming chuunin, but only Asuma had made it this far. Now he wasn't fighting for himself alone. He was moving forward with the expectations of others. Obito grinned. Of course I'll use everything I have. I'm going to win. Even though Asuma was a friend, Obito had no intention of holding back. To do so would disrespect Asuma and might harm his promotion chances. Baruhu had explained that the more thrilling and revealing a match was, the more likely the judges were to promote the combatant. Obito intended to show his strength. Kakashi's number was 16. With only 16 examinees in the third exam, he'd be the last match of the first round, against number 15. He looked at the large screen and silently read the name, Gangi Hyuga. He had remembered Gangi's preliminary performance. No flashy techniques, just the Byakugan and gentle fist to finish his opponent quickly. Kakashi produced a small notebook and, page open, listed all 16 examinees' numbers. He felt confident about his first-round fight and wanted to analyze potential opponents in advance. Gangi watched Kakashi with a serious expression. Kakashi Hatake, he thought. Though Kakashi didn't overwhelm opponents with a single ninjutsu like Obito, he had quickly dismantled rivals with fast, accurate probing, ranking among the preliminaries' fastest fighters. Gangi considered his own bloodline limit. Kakashi's speed had been impressive in the prelims, but Gangi's Byakugan was fundamentally observational. He decided Kakashi's speed might not be enough to best him. That irritating guy. Wait until the second round. I'll defeat him then. Mei Terumi barely glanced at her first-round opponent, who had performed only averagely in the preliminaries. Her number was 11. The second-round opponent would be the winner of 9 and 10. From what she'd seen of Asuma, number 10, he would likely lose to Obito, so Mei expected to face Obito in the second round. She was pleased. Although the fights hadn't started, she already pictured herself reaching the semi-finals and getting revenge for the stolen scroll in the promotion match. Kisame Hoshigaki didn't care about seeding or prelim performance. He was focusing on when he might get to fight Metkai. Kisame was number 1, Guy was number 6. If both won their first 2 rounds, they'd meet in the semis. Once he saw the possible bracket, Kisame was sure their meeting was inevitable. His first-round opponent was number 2, Aoba Yamashiro. The second-round opponent would be decided between number 3, Rin Nohara, and number 4, Nara Shiosui. He felt confident he could beat any of them. Metgai's path, in Kisame's view, was no more threatening. His opponents hardly matched Guy's speed, strength, and the power of the 8 gates. Baruhu then reminded them of logistics. The official start of the third exam is 1 month from now. Use that time to train, gather information, do whatever you can to improve your chances. You'll be fighting for your villages, and many will watch. 1 month? Why so long? Obito asked, confused. All they were doing was fighting 16 people. Why require so much preparation? Baruhu explained that the third exam would draw many spectators. Unlike the earlier exams, this stage was meant to display military strength and represent each shinobi village. Nobles and officials would be invited, and travel arrangements had to be reasonable for wealthy guests. The month would give time for invitations and travel. Obito still had trouble grasping it. A month seemed excessive, but thinking back to his failure in the Death Forest, he realized the interval might be a blessing. He could ask Mu Yue for special training and spend a month improving. He wasn't confident he could place first against the likes of Kasame and Mei, against Metkai's 8 gates, or the memory of Kakashi's performance that felled a jonin like he was possessed. He needed to get stronger. "Any more questions?" Baruhu asked. There were none. The examinees left the arena together, exiting the Baki. Obito wanted to ask Mu Yue for training but decided not to push. Mu Yue had been the chief examiner for several days and must be tired. He greeted Mu Yue and left the Death Forest with Kakashi and the others. Baruhu watched them go and sighed. "I envy them. They still have infinite possibilities." He'd been watching many young geniuses, Kakashi Hatake, Uchiha Obito, Mei Terumi, children under 10 with astonishing strength. Baruhu himself would be 32 soon and considered only an average jonin, a far cry from the likes of Orochimaru and Jiraiya, his contemporaries. "Senior Baruhu, you've only lived 1/3 of your life. You still have great potential," Mu Yue said kindly. Baruhu forced a bitter smile. A ninja's fate is sealed by this age. Look at Jiraiya and Orochimaru. They can lead wars for the 5 great shinobi villages. From our generation, I'm reduced to being an examiner. He admired Mu Yue's optimism when told he still had decades ahead, but Baruhu feared he'd remain ordinary unless he did something drastic. He'd poured himself into research to make up for what he lacked in natural talent. If he couldn't match their innate ability, he could try to integrate others' talents into his own body, fusion. The theory was there, but the development stage terrified him. The ninjutsu he wanted to create required human experimentation. It was dangerous and inhumane. He would have to work in secret. Mu Yue tried to comfort him. "Maybe you're the sort who accumulates and then bursts forth," he suggested, but Baruhu knew Mu Yue could not fully understand. Mu Yue himself had been a genius since youth. Old stories said he could stand beside Jiraiya against a Jinchuriki. Baruhu had already spent too much time to gamble everything on a sudden epiphany. After some final words with Baruhu, Mu Yue finished his duties and returned to his house in the main district. It was 4 in the afternoon, time before dinner. Instead of diving straight into studying sealing techniques as usual, Mu Yue sat with a notebook and considered candidates for his 5th disciple slot. He first wrote Uchiha Itachi. Itachi's actions were controversial, but his talent was undeniable. He'd incapacitated Kakashi with a single look in one account, and his performance when reanimated later was extraordinary. But Itachi had only just been born last month, meaning Mu Yue would have to wait years before taking him on. Next was Yakushi Kabuto. As the so-called Dreamweaver, Kabuto caused a lot of trouble later. He reanimated enemies with Edo Tensei in the Great War and even learned Sage Mode from Ryuchido Cave. Mu Yue believed Kabuto's potential was S-rank on his own, but Kabuto's background was problematic. He'd been adopted by Yakushi Nonu, who hadn't yet become the orphanage director and was still en route. Finding Kabuto would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. Mu Yue dismissed Naruto and Sasuke for now. Their potential was huge, but they were many years from being born and even longer until they could become disciples. By then, Mu Yue might already be invincible, if nothing catastrophic happened in the meantime. He considered Mei Terumi. She was talented and suitable, but she came from the hidden mist and would return there after the exams. Managing a disciple so far from Konoha was impractical. He couldn't expect Mei to defect to Konoha within a month. Yamato was another possibility, young and promising, but his wood release likely meant Danzo was secretly training him. That made Yamato impractical too. To Mu Yue's surprise, Asuma looked like an outstanding candidate, but Mu Yue wasn't willing to spend the 5th disciple slot on him. System disciples were crucial for consolidating strength. He needed someone who could maximize the return. He planned to spare his best teaching for system disciples because power mattered too much in their world. Finally, he wrote down Nagato. Nagato raised many issues. He wasn't under 10, he was only a few years younger than Minato, making him more peer than pupil. Nagato also wielded the Rinnegan, and Uchiha Madara would likely be watching him. He wasn't in Konoha either, he was in the Land of Rain, so taking him would require time and subtlety. Worse, Jiraiya was already Nagato's mentor. But Nagato's advantages were undeniable. He possessed prodigious chakra, and even if the Rinnegan wasn't originally his reserves allowed him to use it. If Mu Yue could win Nagato's trust, he could gain enormous power quickly. And Nagato didn't require waiting. Mu Yue could act as soon as he made up his mind. After weighing pros and cons, Itachi and Kabuto required years of waiting. Nagato had complications, but offered immediate potential. Mu Yue closed the notebook and turned to sealing techniques. He didn't need to decide immediately. This was the real world. There were likely many unknown prodigies he hadn't even learned the names of yet. Maybe he'd casually use an appraisal technique one day and discover an S-rank talent. That evening, Mu Yue helped prepare dinner at Tsunade's house, then packed 2 portions for a shadow clone to deliver to Minato. The next morning, Obito woke at 8, washed quickly, ate breakfast, and headed straight to Mu Yue's house. He wanted to be number 1, so he intended to undergo secret training and surprise everyone. Chapter 315, Respective Practices. Mu Yue-sensei. Obito called excitedly at the door. When no one answered after a minute, he scratched his head and felt something was off. He'd thought of a few possibilities before coming. Today was Saturday, so Mu Yue wouldn't be teaching at the ninja school, but dismissed them quickly. Mu Yue didn't sleep in. "Sensei, are you home?" Obito knocked and called again. Still nothing. He turned and headed straight for the south border forest. Mu Yue might not be at his house, but there would always be a shadow clone of him at their usual training ground. When Obito arrived, he found the place bustling. Kakashi was swinging his sword over and over. Metkai was doing breathing exercises while leaping with a rock in his hands. Shisui formed hand seals and exhaled controlled flames. And Rin stood in front of Mu Yue, listening to his lecture. "Wow! Did you all get up this early right after the exam?" Obito asked, bewildered. He'd planned to train secretly to surprise everyone, but these guys had clearly beaten him to it. He hadn't seen anyone at 8. What time had they gotten up to get Mu Yue out here? Kakashi merely exhaled and said calmly, "Otherwise?" Minato was Kakashi's sensei and a figure he respected, but Minato couldn't help much with transparent world training. Kakashi planned to consult Mu Yue for the whole month and focus on mastering the transparent world to prepare for the chuunin exams. He was already a chuunin, but with the promotion approaching, he'd be facing Obito and Metkai. He didn't want to keep losing. He was a genius. He couldn't accept constant defeat. "It's fine. Isn't getting up at 6 normal?" Metkai replied, still holding his breathing technique form as he passed by mid-jump. "Getting up at 6 is not normal. Only you would do that, guy," Obito complained, then walked over to Mu Yue. "Mu Yue-sensei, can you make me a special training plan to improve my strength? One that will let me beat enemies even when my ninjutsu is countered?" "No problem, Obito. Start with your constant state training first. I'll guide you from there." Mu Yue nodded. He had already perfected water breathing, and since Rin had practiced basic breathing for 3 months, it was time for her to learn water breathing. Obito gave Mu Yue and Rin a thumbs up and began his constant state training. He'd been learning breathing technique for almost a year and was already proficient in these methods. When you use water breathing, you mustn't be impatient. Keep a calm, steady mind. Only then can you maximize its power, Mu Yue reminded them. Water breathing demanded tranquility. After a short theory lesson, he started formally teaching Rin. Because she'd already spent 3 months on basic breathing, and water breathing was among the simplest, Rin picked it up quickly. She didn't go through the long stretches of no progress that Obito and the others had experienced at first. After about half an hour, Mu Yue used an appraisal on Rin. Water breathing appeared in her skill bar at Proficiency 2. Mu Yue smiled inwardly. Rin was luckier than they had been. He also had more experience and better teaching skills now, so the buffs stacked. It was natural that her progress would be faster. Mu Yue split off a shadow clone to continue guiding Rin and moved his main body to Kakashi. Metkai had been the first to ask for instruction, and Mu Yue had already finished with him. Noticing Mu Yue approaching, Kakashi paused his sword swings but kept his breathing technique rhythm. First, tell me in detail about how you felt when you activated the transparent world that day, Mu Yue asked. Mu Yue's own transparent world was an inherent part of his perfected breathing technique. He could use it at will. He needed to understand Kakashi's sensations to plan the next steps. Kakashi nodded and recalled the day. My body ached everywhere. I had no strength, just moving took everything. But before I swung my sword, I didn't feel much because I had a single thought, to defeat the enemy. As that thought sharpened, a transparent sensation came over my mind. I could see my own body and the enemy's body clearly. Extreme physical pain combined with an unyielding spirit, Mu Yue said thoughtfully. Kakashi's path to the transparent world was almost cinematic, severe bodily pain, an intense desire to protect his comrades, and his own talent combined to trigger the awakening early. Mu Yue believed it was an unrepeatable miracle. Metkai had no less pain or determination that day, yet he hadn't reached the transparent world. That ability, the one that is supposed to appear when breathing reaches perfection, was exceedingly rare. All right, Mu Yue said, train your body to its limit, then fight my shadow clone. You must fight with the resolve to kill the clone. Give it everything. Since Kakashi's transparent world had been stimulated by extreme conditions, Mu Yue wanted to try inducing it with extreme combat. He split off a clone to observe Kakashi and walked over to Obito. You want to beat those hidden mist ninja who use water release in the chuunin exams, right? Mu Yue asked plainly. If nothing changed, Obito would face Mei Terumi in the second round. Obito nodded eagerly. The Death Forest match had rattled him. The mist ninja all used water release, and Obito had felt helpless. Fighters like Kurosawa and Zabuza were manageable. Fire counters water if the fire's intensity is high enough. But against Mei and Kisame-level water release, his current fire release lacked the power. There are two approaches, Mu Yue said. One is to get special training in Earth Release Chakra Nature Transformation. Earth counters water. If you learn even one Earth release like Earth Flow Wall, it will block many water release attacks. Obito knew the strengths and weaknesses of different chakra natures. He had once hidden behind Kakashi's Earth Flow Wall. But learning Earth Release for just one opponent felt like overkill. Nature transformation wasn't easy, and his affinity was fire. What's the other option? He asked. Develop your flame-breathing chakra mode and use stronger fire to counter water, Mu Yue replied. Either choice would work. Learning an extra chakra nature would be versatile. Developing the flame-breathing chakra mode would boost his burst potential. After 10 seconds of thought, Obito chose the second. The flame-breathing chakra mode was more appealing than picking up Earth Release. To avoid burning too many trees, Mu Yue took Obito down to the riverbank. Mu Yue switched from rock to flame-breathing, then entered the flame-breathing chakra mode. Instantly, a huge amount of chakra transformed into fire release. Raging flames swirled in his hand, but did not harm him. Each breathing technique has its own traits. Flame-breathing chakra mode grants exceptional flame resistance. One can use intense fire directly without getting burned. This resistance applies to self-generated flames and to others' flames as well. In practical terms, activating the flame-breathing chakra mode dramatically increases fire resistance. Obito was half a meter away and could feel the terrifying heat from Mu Yue's hand. His own fire release didn't compare. He felt his anticipation rise. In the fight with the Mist Jonin, he'd unconsciously brushed the flame-breathing chakra mode, so he believed reaching Mu Yue's level was possible. Fire release. Great Dragon Fire Technique. Mu Yue waved, increasing the flames in his hand into 3 fire dragons that shot toward the river. The dragons plunged into the water, producing thick steam and a cloud of white mist. Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. Mu Yue clapped, exhaled a tide of flames, and twisted them like a dragon. The stream skirted Obito and turned the nearby ground to scorched earth. The mist vanished as the searing heat spread. Even though the flames never touched him, Obito felt hot sweat run down his face. Excitement shone in his expression. If he could enter the flame-breathing chakra mode and wield fire at this level, Mei's water release would be nothing. This is the flame-breathing chakra mode, Yuo said as he exited the state. You can perform fire release without hand seals. It gives strong flame resistance, and it increases the power of your fire. Try it, recall how you felt that day, and push your breathing technique to the limit. Obito closed his eyes and remembered. The sudden Miss Jonin had nearly killed him and Rin. Metkai had been knocked down again and again to protect them, and the Jonin mocked their persistence. Those memories fed the flame in Obito's chest. The drive to protect his teammates flared up. Fire release, great dragon fire technique. Obito tried to perform the jutsu without hand seals like Mu Yue, but only a single flame appeared. Fire dragon flame bullet. He clasped his hands and exhaled 2 fist-sized flames. He scratched his head awkwardly. The gap in power was larger than he'd expected. You haven't truly entered the flame-breathing chakra mode, so you don't get all its effects, Mu Yue said, ruffling Obito's hair. Obito's flame-breathing chakra mode only had 10 proficiency points. It would be a miracle to match Mu Yue. His chakra wouldn't support it. The flame-breathing chakra mode is an ability that reliably awakens only when breathing technique reaches a high proficiency. Obito hadn't even reached proficient level yet, so being able to brush the edge of it at all showed his strong compatibility with flame breathing. Mu Yue wasn't surprised. Obito couldn't fully use the mode. Even Kakashi had struggled to re-enter his transparent world, and Kakashi's had 20 proficiency points. Mu Yue considered the difference and thought it might be due to how the two abilities functioned. Kakashi had fully entered the transparent world in that battle, while Obito's flame-breathing chakra mode had always been incomplete. Mu Yue then tested Obito's incomplete flame-breathing chakra mode. The fire-release chakra nature transformation was faster than in normal full concentration. The flames were stronger and fire resistance greatly increased. Overall power was higher than normal full concentration, but the cost was severe. Chakra consumption skyrocketed. In a real all-out fight, factoring in Sharingan drain, Obito would burn out in about 3 minutes. This chakra consumption is insane, Obito said, feeling like he'd been fighting for half an hour after only a few minutes. Mu Yue proposed a workaround. If you enter the flame-breathing chakra mode but use little or no direct fire release, you can attach fire release to your taijutsu, turn every strike into a flaming attack. Normally, fire release applied directly to the body risks self-harm, but flame-breathing chakra mode's high fire resistance solves that problem. The high-temperature flames would burn opponents on contact and are more efficient than firing big fireballs at the ground. For water release that ordinary fire release ninjutsu can't melt, expend extra chakra to strengthen the attached fire jutsu for longer endurance. Obito liked the idea. Fire release ninjutsu sounded cool. They set his special training plan, primarily work on breathing technique and taijutsu, then combine the two to practice fire release ninjutsu, attaching flames to every taijutsu move. Chapter 316. Mu Yue. Warm on the outside, cold on the inside? It wasn't only Obito and the others who were scrambling to improve. Asuma, the only member of their team to make it to the 3rd round of the chuunin exams, also wanted to make a breakthrough in the month before the next round. He didn't know where Mu Yue lived, so on Monday after school, he waited at the Ninja Academy gate. The moment Mu Yue appeared, Asuma hurried over and greeted him. Mu Yue smiled, already guessing why Asuma had sought him out. At a time like this, there weren't many reasons someone would come looking for him. "Teacher Mu Yue, do you have time to put together a special training plan for me?" Asuma asked, cheeks reddening a little. "I feel like only training with you gives me any hope of beating Obito." It stung to hear it, but there was truth in it. Asuma's teacher rank and knowledge simply couldn't match Mu Yue's. If he trained exclusively with his Jonin instructor for a month, he'd be outclassed. "I have some short-term ideas that can improve your strength," Mu Yue replied carefully, "but beating Obito will still be very difficult." It wasn't that Asuma lacked talent. Obito, however, was on another level for a chuunin. The Sharingan, a half-activated mark, greater chakra reserves. Even with substantial improvement in a month, Asuma's wind and fire release techniques would struggle against Obito. For peers to stand a chance against him, they either needed an elemental counter like Mei Terumi or the kind of daily, specialized instruction Mu Yue had been giving Obito. Although the system's rewards went to Mu Yue, his disciples benefited too. unique forbidden ninjutsu like the breathing techniques and powerful teaching methods. That was why Obito and the others had quickly mastered so many potent techniques. Asuma had received more of Mu Yue's attention than most outside those inner disciples, but his instruction time had still been far less than Obito's. On top of that, because Asuma was the third Hokage's son, Mu Yue had deliberately limited what he taught him at first, only showing the ninjutsu he could demonstrate publicly to avoid revealing anything unusual. Asuma had been given a little nature transformation and mid-rank ninjutsu back then, nothing extraordinary. Now, Mu Yue could teach breathing techniques to Asuma and help him re-establish his reputation. The mark and transparent world were powerful, but they weren't casual things to cultivate. The normal breathing technique, by contrast, was a solid secret art, foundational but not miraculous. Even if Asuma hadn't come to him personally, Mu Yue would have introduced him to the basic breathing technique at the next lesson. "Why not flame breathing?" Asuma asked. "Because you clearly have more aptitude for wind release," Mu Yue said. "You're more suited to wind breathing. The system hasn't rewarded wind breathing, so I'll develop it myself." Mu Yue had already reached a high level of wind release nature transformation. He possessed 2 perfect-level breathing techniques, 2 proficient-level ones, and had experience developing water breathing. He estimated he could complete a full wind breathing in about half a year. Once wind breathing was finished, he'd try to work towards sun breathing. The thought of gathering all 5 basic breathing techniques made him reluctant not to pursue it. Mu Yue suspected sun breathing would rely heavily on yang release nature, perhaps combined with fire release, or tied to natural energy and sage mode, or even a combination of all those elements. Asuma squared his shoulders. "If I give it everything and still can't win, then I'll lose honestly," he said. He knew the odds. Obito was stronger now. Even so, he didn't want to be routed in 2 moves like that boy in the preliminaries. He was supposed to be the senior in the team. He couldn't collapse that cheaply. Mu Yue nodded. After dinner, he began Asuma's training. "I'll teach you a secret that boosts your physical abilities. You must practice it every day." He introduced Asuma to the basic breathing technique, a must-learn. It enhanced Taijutsu and laid the foundation for future wind breathing, making it extremely efficient. Also, strengthen your wind release nature transformation. "I'll teach you a wind release jutsu with strong wind power," Mu Yue added. Facing Obito with fire release was unlikely to succeed. Obito had superior fire release proficiency and a larger chakra pool. Wind was their better bet. If the wind power became strong enough, it could greatly disrupt an opponent's control of flames. Elemental counters still mattered, but the odds with fire release were smaller, and it was too late to learn water release. Wind offered a glimmer of hope. The jutsu Mu Yue planned for Asuma was wind release, cyclone, an exchanged B-rank technique from the jutsu pavilion that fit Asuma's situation perfectly. The formal training began. Asuma, new to breathing techniques, struggled at first, unable to find the correct rhythm, much like Obito and the others had at the start. "I never thought breathing could become a ninjutsu. Why have I never heard of this?" Asuma complained. "This area is relatively obscure. Apart from me, I rarely hear of anyone developing ninjutsu tied to breathing technique," Mu Yue said with a smile, subtly hinting at his role in their development. Asuma's eyes lit up. "So you developed it, teacher Mu Yue." Mu Yue adjusted his black-framed glasses and smiled. "If you can develop a jutsu yourself when you understand your needs, it's a good choice. You know yourself best." From then on, Mu Yue's schedule grew even more crowded. He still taught at the academy to keep his skills sharp, gave special training to his disciples, carved out study time with Tsunade, and worked on wind breathing and sealing techniques. He slept only a few hours a night. But the busyness paid off. The increased effort translated into real gains in strength. While helping Asuma devise a plan to face Obito, Mu Yue also worked intensively with Obito on fire release. Mu Yue had mastered many high-level jutsu, and his fire release nature had reached perfection, so he was well suited to develop fire techniques. Given Obito's slightly slower speed of learning and the 1-month time constraint, Mu Yue created 3 new moves for him. The first was fire release, Flame Fist. Drawing on monstrous strength, chakra condensed and compressed in the fist. Upon impact, flames would erupt and engulf the target. The second was Fire Release Leaf Whirlwind, retaining the high-speed spinning kick but adding searing flames to amplify its power. The third, Fire Release Blazing Impact, concentrated chakra at the shoulder so the entire body ignited and could charge like a blazing battering ram. On contact, it struck with an Iron Mountain blow. Of the three, Blazing Impact was the strongest. Though they appeared simple, these techniques were not easy to master. In a Hokage Jutsu ranking, Flame Fist and Blazing Impact qualified as B rank. Their compatibility with flame breathing, however, made them somewhat easier for Obito to practice. After learning them, Obito spent his days ramming trees with Blazing Impact, breaking them with the Iron Mountain Strike. He thought it looked very cool, his whole body burning in flames. Kakashi's special training, by contrast, was truly hellish, the toughest regimen among Mu Yue's disciples. Kakashi had to push his body to the limit before combat, and Mu Yue's shadow clones didn't hold back. They allowed injuries when necessary. Even once a day, that high difficulty placed tremendous pressure on Kakashi. Still, his breathing technique advanced quickly. Although his stats were still just shy of proficiency, Mu Yue could see Kakashi's lightning breathing gaining strength. It was worth noting that 10 days after the chuunin exams, Mu Yue ran into Mei Terumi again at the same ice cream stall. She stood there indecisive, the same conflicted expression as before. "If you can't decide, just buy them all," Mu Yue said, walking up. "You need money to do that," Mei snapped, glaring with mock resentment. She wasn't foolish. If she could afford everything, she would have. She was here for the chuunin exams and hadn't brought much spending money. After her disappointing Death Forest result, she had been binging on ice cream for days, so her funds were depleted. Mu Yue ordered 3 strawberry ice creams. The vendor was quick and handed them over. Mei watched enviously. A few days earlier, she might have asked for 3 of every flavor. To her surprise, Mu Yue handed 2 of the strawberry ice creams to her. "Last time I gave you one. This time I'm giving you 2. Let's call it even," he said. Mu Yue still winced inwardly at the memory of Obito saying Mei was crazy for fighting him over a strawberry ice cream. He had left to avoid trouble, but that had caused Obito to suffer more than he deserved. Buying 3 strawberry ice creams, 2 for Mei Terumi to settle the matter, and the last one for Obito as compensation, felt like the simplest way to tidy up the mess. Mei took the 2 ice creams, beaming. Now she could buy a vanilla one for herself, a treat she was looking forward to. A moment of awkwardness crossed her face. She'd hit someone's disciple and yet accepted ice cream. "During the chuunin exams, I'll make sure he loses beautifully and handsomely," she declared. She wouldn't return the ice creams. Instead, she planned to put on a show in the exams, let Obito fight with spirit and style before she defeated him. If he advanced, that might be a way to repay Mu Yue for the treat. "Thank you. You're a good person," Mei said happily, and handed Mu Yue a little good person token. He accepted it quietly and walked away. The future relationship between the Hidden Mist and Konoha was uncertain. Too much interaction could be harmful for both sides. In a dim cave, Uchiha Madara listened to Black Zetsu's report. Hayate Mugetsu appears warm on the outside, but cold within. He was nearby and didn't intervene, watching his students get hurt. Although Akami Hideyuki was eventually defeated by his students working together, it only succeeded through an extreme burst of power, Black Zetsu relayed, then added what he'd learned about Obito and Mu Yue. He's usually meticulous about his students, yet when they're in danger, he stood aside. Madara mused. The man Hayate Mugetsu intrigued him. He likely hid secrets. If he's truly indifferent to those students, then the plan will proceed very smoothly, Madara said, a smile forming. If Mu Yue's care for Obito was only an act, then simply guiding Obito to that realization could be enough to shatter his emotions. Kill Rin Nohara, the one he loved, and Obito could be pushed into darkness and used. But if not, this Hayate Mugetsu will be a great obstacle, Black Zetsu warned. He was able to injure Kumagakure's Raikage candidate without using full power. His strength might even surpass Minato Namikaze. Black Zetsu's surveillance of Obito had yielded much information about Mu Yue, armament haki, flame-breathing chakra mode. These were all unfamiliar, powerful techniques, evidence they were Mu Yue's own creations. To Black Zetsu, Mu Yue was a figure like Senju Tobirama, someone who preferred to hide their true ability. If Madara were in his prime, Mu Yue would be irrelevant. But the Madara before him now was old, surviving through the Outer Path demonic statue. Dealing with Mu Yue, whether he succeeded or not, would require a great deal of effort. Hashirama is gone, Madara said evenly. What can a junior under 20 do? 3:17. Sarutobi Hiruzen was shocked, skillfully using all 5 natures, because she had practiced basic breathing for months beforehand. Rin Nohara's water breathing advanced quickly. In 5 days, she could almost use it in combat. Mu Yue's assessment put her at 20 points at the entry level. The rate slowed after she passed 20, though. To improve Rin's solo fighting ability and to take advantage of how water breathing boosted water release, Mu Yue began teaching her water release techniques. He planned to teach her 2 water release jutsu that month: water prison technique, useful for both offense and defense, and water dragon bullet technique, purely offensive. For the chuunin exams, it would have been ideal to teach hidden mist technique and then focus on sound perception training, since shadow imitation technique is useless without knowing the enemy's location. But hidden mist technique was a secret of Kirigakure and hard to explain away, so Mu Yue chose the more practical and straightforward water prison and water dragon bullet. The chuunin exams were on a mid-session break, and all the examinees were sharpening themselves, from Konoha to Kirigakure. The Ninja Academy's first semester ended, final exams loomed, and a long vacation followed. For the 4th grade students promising to graduate, the break wasn't all relaxation. They would undergo 5 weeks of special training. Mu Yue had originally planned to repeat his first special training: large classes, rapid acquisition of many jutsu. If every session were a big class, students could learn 4 jutsu a day and reach 100 techniques in 5 weeks. But the Death Forest incident made Mu Yue change his mind. He wanted to add more advanced content to improve their odds on tougher missions. In the original timeline, Obito's story unfolded later, and the Kanabi Bridge battle happened after Kakashi became a jonin at 12, with about 3 years between. This wasn't the original timeline, though. This was Mu Yue's version of the Hokage world. He had kept a low profile, but he had changed a lot. Obito here was very different. He'd awakened his Sharingan early, learned excellent fire release and breathing techniques from Muyu, and twice bested Jonin with his team. Facing such an Obito, Mu Yue could not assume Uchiha Madara would act as in the original story. Obito's team was stronger, they would take on harder missions earlier, and Madara might intervene sooner. Madara and Black Zetsu operated in the shadows unknown even to Mu Yue, though Mu Yue concealed much himself. To increase the village's odds, he wanted everyone stronger. Still, Mu Yue was the one in charge of a summer special training roster of over 300 graduates. He couldn't just teach anything. He needed Hiruzen Sarutobi's sign-off. After dinner one evening, Mu Yue went to the 3rd Hokage's home. It wasn't usual to bring official business to Hiruzen after hours, but Mu Yue and Hiruzen had a good relationship, and Mu Yue also wanted to demonstrate a few things. 3rd Hokage-sama, I'd like to change the summer special training program, Mu Yue said after a brief greeting. Hiruzen set down his pipe, looked at him, and asked, "A new idea?" Hiruzen assumed it must be a major change. Minor details, Mu Yue could decide himself. "I want to add chakra nature transformation to the curriculum," Mu Yue said. Chakra nature transformation wasn't inherently advanced. Many ninja from clans or with ninja parents started learning it before academy, but the academy didn't teach it. Most students only learned it from their sensei after graduation. 2 reasons. First, students have different innate natures, and rare types like wind might lack an available teacher. Second, nature transformation training is dangerous, and the academy's instructors weren't necessarily skilled enough to teach it safely. That second reason was the main one. Many chuunin instructors could teach basic jutsu, but weren't experts in nature transformation, and misleading students would be a real risk. Why teach nature transformati on now? With so many students there will certainly be all 5 natures, and training accidents could happen, Hiruzen said, not denying Mu Yue outright, but pointing out the difficulties. Mu Yue had already anticipated that and smiled calmly. I've mastered all 5 basic nature transformations. Earth release isn't my strongest, but I can give basic instruction. Hiruzen's interest peaked. Learning your own nature wasn't hard, learning another was doable. Most Konoha Jonin had 2 or more nature transformations, but mastering all 5, and to the point of practical combat use, was rare. It made a ninja flexible, able to counter whatever jutsu the opponent used and to combine natures for greater power. Hiruzen remembered why he'd been called the professor of ninjutsu. He'd mastered thousands of techniques across the 5 great natures, genjutsu, and secret arts. None of his 3 disciples had followed that path. Tsunade focused on medical and taijutsu, Jiraiya on fire and sage techniques, Orochimaru on summoning and snake arts. If you can, demonstrate a little, Hiruzen said, curious. Mu Yue bowed and Hiruzen led him to the backyard. Asuma, practicing wind release nearby, greeted Mu Yue enthusiastically. Come quickly, don't let Mu Yue's jutsu accidentally injure you, Hiruzen joked. How could that happen? With Mu Yue-sensei's control, he won't hurt me. Asuma replied and came closer to watch. Mu Yue began with fire. He chose Fire Dragon Flame Bullet, a difficult, powerful fire jutsu that tests both strength and control. He formed the seals and expelled a torrent of flames that quickly became a small, raging sea of fire. Under his control, the flames split and surged forward in 3 directions, front, left, and right, without a single ember touching Hiruzen's house. A very proficient Fire Dragon Flame Bullet, Hiruzen said, stroking his beard. From that jutsu, he could tell Mu Yue's fire release exceeded most in the ninja world in both power and precision. Even Hiruzen at Mu Yue's age would have been comparable. Asuma could only stare in awe. At that moment, Danzo Shimura's voice called out, Hiruzen, I'm in the backyard. Hiruzen had anticipated Danzo's visit. The matter of Kirigakure's compensation for Akami Hideyuki had been a point of contention. Danzo wanted harsher demands, money, ninja tools, to set a deterrent. Hiruzen preferred symbolic recompense to avoid pushing Kirigakure into hostility while they were already at odds with Iwagakure and Kumogakure. Danzo had come again after being rebuffed at the office. Danzo arrived to find Mu Yue maintaining a hand sign over the sea of flames. His expression soured. This Fire Dragon Flame Bullet was no ordinary performance, and it was a technique Danzo had once granted Mu Yue. Seeing it displayed at Hiruzen's home, and having discovered it by chance, made Danzo uneasy. Let him finish his demonstration, Hiruzen said. Danzo nodded coldly. On the surface he sneered, but inside he was pleased. Mu Yue was becoming the kind of powerful jonin who could be useful against tailed beasts, and Danzo liked to think Mu Yue still owed him something. Mu Yue greeted Danzo politely, showing no sign of any root connection. Next, Mu Yue used water release. He chose the Great Waterfall technique, one Hiruzen had previously taught and guided him through. A massive torrent gushed forth, extinguishing the remaining flames. The backyard backed onto a small copse. The flood uprooted trees and turned the area into a shallow lake. Very good. You've reached this level in just a few months, Hiruzen praised. He'd watched Mu Yue learn this technique and had seen steady progress. Thanks to your guidance, Third Hokage-sama, Mu Yue said with a humble smile. My guidance was only auxiliary. It's your talent and effort, Hiruzen replied with a chuckle. Asuma nodded in agreement. Hiruzen rubbed Asuma's head and muttered about admitting such things. Having his student echo the praise hit him a bit harder than he liked. Danzo's outward disdain masked inner satisfaction. Hiruzen. His training had helped make Mu Yue strong, but Mu Yue's loyalty was not something Danzo thought Hiruzen could claim. Mu Yue pressed on. Wind release, vacuum bullet. He formed the seals, exhaled, and transparent currents of compressed air struck the ground. There was a boom. Rock shattered and dust rose as the yard broke apart. Hiruzen puffed his pipe twice in approval. The vacuum bullet was another technique Hiruzen had given Mu Yue. Seeing it reinforced that Mu Yue's mastery of fire, wind, and water exceeded that of a typical jonin, fire strongest, then wind, then water. Danzo, who fancied himself Konoha's top wind release user, still nodded approval. Mu Yue's wind release was no longer ordinary. With water, fire, and wind developed to such levels, it was no surprise Mu Yue could have assisted Jiraiya against tailed beasts. He was an elite among jonin, and at only 19, he had a bright future. Danzo considered whether Mu Yue would be better used under Orochimaru in the field, where he could gain combat experience and help Orochimaru's standing. Hiruzen and Danzo had different agendas for a talent like Mu Yue. After the vacuum bullet, Mu Yue took 2 steady breaths and used earth release to repair the shattered ground. Then he unleashed another earth technique. Earth release, earth flow river. Mud in front of him surged and became a rushing river of earth. Mu Yue's earth release was only at the proficient level, 1,800 points, so he didn't hold back and used a lot of chakra to amplify the effect. "You're too modest," Hiruzen said, remembering Mu Yue's earlier words. He'd once thought Mu Yue weak at earth, but Mu Yue's current level was certainly on par with an ordinary jonin, even those who specialized in earth. If this was only barely enough to teach, many supposed instructors wouldn't really qualify. "Compared to my other natures, it's weaker. I still need to train more," Mu Yue said with a smile. Finally, Mu Yue demonstrated lightning release without hand seals. He raised his arm and a brilliant violet lightning wrapped his right hand. He shaped and directed it into streaks that struck the ground, leaving burnt craters. "Did you develop that no-hand sign lightning technique yourself?" Hiruzen asked, surprised by the scorch marks. It's called purple lightning," Mu Yue answered. He offered a brief, private apology in his heart to Kakashi before nodding. A quiet acknowledgement of some backstory only he and a few others knew. Hiruzen looked at him, astonished. While Mu Yue's lightning release was a bit weaker than his top 3 natures, designing a powerful no-hand sign lightning technique on his own proved extraordinary talent and creativity. "Danzo, you almost ruined a genius," Hiruzen said, half to himself and half to Danzo, relieved he'd found Mu Yue when he did. He couldn't imagine how strong Mu Yue might be now if Hiruzen had nurtured him from the start. Mu Yue was undoubtedly the kind of disciple he wished to have. Danzo's face remained stony, but his mind was already turning over possibilities. Asuma only had one thought: Mu Yue-sensei is awesome. The demonstration had made its point. Mu Yue could teach the 5 natures, and Konoha had a rare talent under the 3rd Hokage's roof. Hiruzen Sarutobi calmed himself quickly. As the current Hokage, he couldn't take on disciples on a whim. The reasoning was simple. Whoever he accepted as a disciple would one day be in a position to contend for the Hokage, and suddenly taking Mu Yue on now would send the wrong signal. Mu Yue wasn't a child. He was already a jonin with battlefield merits. Hiruzen could choose to accept him as a personal disciple after retirement, which would be much less complicated. Hiruzen truly hoped for a disciple who could inherit his mantle, someone whose skills would carry on his teachings. Mu Yue was the most suitable candidate. Hiruzen was very pleased with him, both in talent and character. "I agree with your plan." "No objections," Hiruzen said. Mu Yue's level of nature transformation was more than sufficient to teach at the Ninja Academy, and he had plenty of experience instructing large groups. Hiruzen chose to trust first and question later. "I won't get in the way of your discussion with Danzo-sama," Mu Yue said, having achieved his immediate goal. He left promptly. He had aimed to get his special training plan approved and cement his reputation as a talented instructor. Now, unexpectedly, Danzo's presence had made that reputation look even more legitimate. When Mu Yue had used water release earlier, he deliberately employed the Great Waterfall technique that Hiruzen had taught him, then credited Hiruzen's guidance, giving Danzo the impression that Hiruzen had been mentoring him. From Danzo's perspective, that made Mu Yue's rise seem reasonable. Mu Yue still needed Konoha's support. He could be strong, but not so exceptional as to be untouchable. At first, Mu Yue had worried his root background would be a liability. Now he realized it was actually an advantage. Root had given him opportunities and a network he couldn't have had otherwise. As a root-trained shinobi, Danzo had a baseline trust in him. His indoctrination from childhood made that natural. Hiruzen nodded, then dismissed Asuma to return to his quarters. Asuma, who had followed Mu Yue without hesitation, seized the chance to ask a question. "Mu Yue-sensei, I've been having trouble with my wind release lately," he said, and Mu Yue led him to a more open area to teach. Danzo watched Mu Yue depart and could not keep his opinion to himself. A shinobi like Hayate Mugetsu shouldn't be stuck teaching at the academy. He'd be far more useful en route, especially with wars breaking out everywhere. Root needs people like him. Hiruzen's answer was immediate and firm. "Don't bring that up again. Mu Yue is not returning to Root." From what Hiruzen had observed, Root was no place for Mu Yue. He didn't even plan to assign him to the Anbu. Mu Yue was doing well in Konoha. He enjoyed what he did and was continuing his own training while contributing to the village. Danzo bristled. Hiruzen, I trained him. Are you trying to bring up the fact you illegally conscripted the descendant of a war hero into Root? Hiruzen's eyes sharpened. Danzo fell silent. He couldn't defend that. His actions had been questionable at best. Even if he doesn't go back to Root, he shouldn't be teaching at the academy, Danzo persisted. With that sort of strength, he could be much more effective on the front lines. Send him to the front as Orochimaru's deputy. Kumogakure's front is a tougher problem than Iwagakure. Hiruzen wasn't swayed. I have my own plans for the Kumogakure front, he said. He knew Danzo's scheming too well to trust any Mu Yue-related request coming from him. Danzo, frustrated that his groundwork had been wasted, exploded. Hiruzen, what are you thinking? The academy doesn't need a teacher this strong. Hiruzen took a puff from his pipe and exhaled a small cloud. You don't know about Mu Yue's teaching achievements, he said. His record is the best the academy's ever seen. His class far outperforms other classes of the same grade, and his special training raises graduates' levels significantly. Danzo had never seen the details. He'd had Mu Yue on a reporting schedule when Mu Yue was en route, but those reports didn't cover teaching outcomes. He only knew Mu Yue seemed to teach well. Hiruzen produced the actual data Mu Yue had submitted and pushed it across the desk. Danzo wasn't fluent in academy matters, but he could read a table. The class averages under Mu Yue were clearly higher. Seeing the numbers, he realized Hiruzen wasn't exaggerating. With the Hokage unmoved, Danzo had no further recourse. After all, his authority as assistant fire shadow derived from Hiruzen. Danzo comforted himself with a thought. The more Hiruzen valued Mu Yue now, the more useful Mu Yue would be for Danzo later. Resigned, he dropped the subject and moved on to the real reason for his visit, compensation issues with the Hidden Mist. He'd come prepared with data to argue for higher payments, but Hiruzen methodically refuted each point. In the end, the discussion ended in mutual stubbornness and a heavily slammed door. Disciple Uchiha Shisui diligently cultivated and achieved perfect scores in the academic assessment, receiving rewards, chakra plus 300, skill proficiency scroll. The final exams concluded and the system rewards were handed out as usual. With Obito and Metkai arranging some outside rewards and Shisui remaining the only direct academy disciple, the atmosphere felt a bit quieter than usual, though the students outside the official channels kept things lively. Mu Yue-sensei, can I have a parting gift? I'll miss you during the break. I recommend Dango, cheap and delicious, Anko whispered, covering her paper while her big eyes shone at Mu Yue. Kotetsu, she only scored 81 this time. She regressed. Kotetsu Hagane couldn't help but report. You spoil Anko too much, Izumo Kamizuki added. You should set a rule, no Dango for anyone under 95. That might push her to improve. Izumo always scored above 95, so his suggestion was easy for him to live with. Mu Yue considered this. Anko had never been enthusiastic about theory. With good methods and some almost cheating teaching tricks, she still barely managed around 80. Kotetsu's comments stung her, but Izumo's threshold terrified her. No Dango at all if she didn't reach 95. Seeing Mu Yue appear to take it seriously, Anko lashed out first. She punched Kotetsu and kicked Izumo, then pleaded. Mu Yue-sensei, don't listen to them. Learning takes a whole semester, but exams only happen twice. I studied but didn't do well. If you punish me by withholding Dango, it'll traumatize me. She looked at him like a loyal retainer trying to save her lord from a bad decision. Mu Yue delivered a light, precise tap to her forehead. She flinched and cradled it instinctively. It's fine to mess up once, but you've never scored above 90, he said, retracting his hand. Do you always fail? I heard about this thing called exam anxiety. Maybe I have it, so I always get nervous and do poorly, Anko said solemnly. How convenient, Mu Yue replied with a smile. Today I've caught a disease too. The absolutely will not give Anko Dango disease. My heart simply refuses. Anko was speechless, but when it was time, Mu Yue still tapped her head and handed over her share of Dango. At least don't slip next time, he said, ruffling her hair. Heh, I'll try my best. Anko's face lit up instantly. Mu Yue-sensei, will this special training be just you again, like before? Anko asked through a mouthful of Dango. Yes, And this time I'll teach things you can't learn in the academy, Mu Yue replied. Things you can't learn at the academy? Like what? She pressed. You'll find out next Monday, Mu Yue said, withholding the details. Too bad Ebisu-senpai graduated. I can't train with him, Kotetsu said regretfully. Yeah, such a shame, Izumo agreed. Ebisu had been more than a senior to them. He'd opened a door to a new world. That's not necessarily true, Mu Yue said with a smile. This time he planned to teach nature transformation, and with his growing reputation around Konoha, more genin would likely attend than the first time he offered special training. The idea of being taught solely by Mu Yue and learning significant new material had Anko, Izumo, and Kotetsu all eagerly anticipating next week's sessions. 319. More than expected. Number of people. Mu Yue had expected a larger turnout for this special training. The genin who had graduated this year knew his teaching ability and were more willing to sign up, and his brief mention in the Leaf newspaper had given him a bit of fame around Konoha. The Leaf newspaper might not publish often or give front-page coverage, but it was the village's only official paper and still carried weight. Even so, Mu Yue was a little taken aback when the teacher in charge of counting applicants came over. He had assumed the fourth-year class would come en masse, and that other years would follow the old rule of 8 per grade. But the genin alone who signed up numbered 350. When the registration teacher added in the Ninja Academy students, the total came to 694 participants. Mu Yue blinked at the figure. Last year's special training hadn't had anything close to this many people. Nearly 700 was the size of a full ninja squad. If Mu Yue were the same as last year, he would have had to find a way to slim the list down. But he wasn't the same. His chakra had increased dramatically, his stamina and ninjutsu knowledge had grown, and his overall strength was far beyond what it had been when he'd run the last training. I'll give it a shot, he said after thinking for a moment. Although it's a lot, it shouldn't be unmanageable. A turnout this large was an opportunity. Last time, teaching over 300 students had earned him a substantial class reward. With nearly 700, the reward this time could be even better. That was one reason Mu Yue had altered his special training plan. He was aiming for more. Now that the chance was in front of him, he wasn't about to pass it up. He scanned the list of applicants and saw many familiar names. A lot were the recently graduated genin who had attended his first special training. As he'd expected, Ebisu and Shiranui Genma had signed up. There were genin from other cohorts as well. Asuma had heard Mu Yue would teach nature transformation and had brought his teammates. Mu Yue even found Inuzuka Midori and Nara Shiosui on the roster, which surprised him a little. Shiosui's squad was fairly strong and might have made chuunin under normal circumstances. Okay, Teacher Mu Yue. It's confirmed then. Everyone on this list will participate, the registration teacher said when he saw Mu Yue give the go-ahead. He admired Mu Yue. Most people would be overwhelmed by the sheer numbers. Handling nearly 700 students was beyond most instructors, but Mu Yue's official recognition as a capable shinobi in Konoha made the registration teacher believe he could do it. Mu Yue nodded and finalized the arrangements. On Monday, the registered ninja and academy students arrived at Mu Yue's designated training ground on time. The field was already crowded. Shiosui, why did you sign up for this? The chuunin exams start in 9 days. This won't make much difference, will it? Inuzuka Midori asked, puzzled. Real growth didn't happen overnight. Unless someone suddenly awakened a Kekkei Genkai, a few days' training rarely produced dramatic improvement. The instructor for this special training, Hayate Mugetsu, is the chief proctor for the second exam, Nara Shiosui replied. Mu Yue and Hayate Mugetsu were the same person. Judging from what happened in the Death Forest, he's also Rin Nohara's teacher. If Rin takes this training, I can learn more about her. Shiosui had fought alongside Rin in the Death Forest and already knew 2 things about her. She could unleash tremendous power, and she was skilled in medical ninjutsu. Training near her for a few days, he thought, might reveal her combat habits, knowledge that could be crucial in a tight spot. Besides, he added, I checked with my father, a jonin, and Mugetsu is a very strong jonin and an excellent teacher. Even if Rin doesn't come, we should learn something useful. Midori looked around, bewildered. There are so many people. This can't be the right place. She estimated 500 or 600 people were already on the ground. Could that many really be taking the same special training? It's right, Shisui said, frowning. The crowd was unusual. If not for the fact most attendees looked young, some without headbands, he would have thought it a gathering of full teams. Nearby, Kotetsu Hagane had been searching for Ebisu among the throng. "Big brother Ebisu, you came!" Kotetsu cried when he finally spotted the familiar sunglasses. Izumo Kamizuki trotted over at the same time. "We finally meet again. We really miss making ninjutsu with you, big brother Ebisu." Ebisu's mouth twitched. He didn't miss those days. He'd become someone girls avoided and had made a poor impression on the third Hokage. Still, when Shiranui Genma waved and called out, Ebisu had to respond. "Yo, Kotetsu Izumo. Long time," Shiranui called, a senbon clenched in his mouth. "Long time no see," Ebisu replied flatly. Kotetsu eyed Genma's headband enviously. "Big brother Genma, after you graduated, did you do high-level missions every day, defeat strong enemies from other villages, and rescue noble daughters to earn recognition?" "Ah," Genma laughed. "Kotetsu, you read too many novels. Newly graduated genin don't get grand adventures. Most of our time goes to training. We can't even take missions outside the village." Their team's prospects were more modest than some others. Without connections asking the Hokage for special missions, even with instructors like Teacher Chen and Metkai, they were mostly doing honest D-rank work. Still, there were interesting moments, Genma said, remembering their bell-snatching fiasco. "That enemy confusion technique you invented, our strongest taijutsu user totally fell for it." Izumo and Kotetsu looked stunned and proud. If their technique had fooled the village's top taijutsu fighter, that was a major compliment. "Big brother Ebisu, we should improve it. Take it further," Izumo urged. "I think it's fine the way it is," Ebisu demurred. He was here to learn nature transformation, not to indulge fan club requests. Seeing his young admirers crestfallen, though, he relented a little. "If I have time, I'll listen." "You want to talk ninjutsu?" Genma teased. As the hour approached, more people arrived and the noise on the training ground rose. Groups formed, old classmates and recent graduates catching up. "I didn't expect so many people," someone said. "It's like being back at the academy." "My instructor frowned when I said I planned a month of special training," another added, but when I told him it was Mugetsu's class, he agreed. At 8 o'clock, Mu Yue appeared. He didn't have to shout. Most of those present were young, and the sight of his tall, golden-haired figure drew attention. The students near him quieted, and the silence spread until the whole ground was hushed. "Many of you are old friends," Mu Yue said, his voice calm. "Thank you for your trust. There are a lot of you here, so please be quiet until I finish." Normally he'd tolerate a bit of chatter in small classes. Silence could be numbing, but with nearly 700 students, even a fraction talking would drown him out. The main focuses of this special training are chakra control, taijutsu, basic ninjutsu, and chakra nature transformation, he announced. The field sat attentive, the prospect of the coming days already making the crowded training ground feel charged with potential. Mu Yue's announcement set the Ninja Academy students buzzing. Special training for genin usually specified the subjects in advance, but the Academy's special training did not, so everyone had assumed it would be more basic ninjutsu and taijutsu work. No one expected chakra nature transformation to be taught. The Academy did teach some theoretical chakra knowledge that mentioned nature transformation as a prerequisite for the 5 great ninjutsu, but most students only knew it existed and nothing more. With so many students, there must be people with every nature. How's he going to teach them all? Nara, Shiosui muttered, glancing around. Mu Yue was the only teacher present. Shiosui had assumed there would be 5 instructors, 1 per nature, and that at most Mu Yue, as the special training head, would take on a couple of extra classes. 1 person handling everyone seemed unlikely. Could Mu Yue have mastered all 5 chakra natures to a teachable degree? Shiosui considered it, then shook his head. Even if Mu Yue had mastered all 5, teaching 700 students by himself was impossible. He guessed that formal classes simply hadn't started yet, and the other teachers hadn't arrived. Had Asuma, Raido Namiyashi, and Kurenai Yuhi not praised Mu Yue's display of 5 nature ninjutsu so highly, Raido, who had attended a previous special training, would have been just as skeptical. Both the skill of mastering 5 natures and the prospect of one person teaching so many students felt outrageous. First, a group test. "I'll assign you to groups by overall ability," Mu Yue said. He formed hand signs and used the multiple shadow clone technique to create 15 shadow clones. With so many students, testing them one by one would take all day. Because this course included nature transformation, he had also bought a large number of chakra test papers to determine each student's elemental affinity. Even though the student count was huge, Mu Yue insisted on keeping only 3 groups, A, B, and C. Too many groups would complicate teaching and reduce the benefit of his teaching skill buff. 3 groups allowed a manageable gap between levels and let him also subdivide by chakra nature during nature training. It still took 2 hours, even with 15 clones plus his main body, to complete all the records. After dispelling the clones to integrate their memories, Mu Yue created 2 more to handle the grouping. Now the C group roster. Students whose names are called come up, one clone announced and began reading names. Kotetsu Hagane, Izumo Kamizuki, Anko Mitarashi. "Why am I still in C group?" "That can't be right," Anko complained, scratching her head. She remembered Mu Yue had said she had B group strength at the end of last special training. How could she have fallen back in a year? "Heh, let's go. Bragging never helps." In Teacher Mu Yue's eyes, "You're at the same level we are," Kotetsu said with a laugh. While he had wanted B group, his mood brightened when he heard Anko was also in C group. Her setback made his feel less bad. "Prove him wrong with your strength," Izumo urged. Anko rolled her eyes. She chose to trust Mu Yue's judgment. She was vindicated. As names continued, even students who had been in last time's B and A groups were assigned to C this round. Yuga Uzuki, Gekko Hayate. Most of the current enrollees ended up in C. "The grouping standard must be higher this time," Yuga said, surprised. "Good, then we'll be together," Gekko smiled. "Really, it doesn't matter which group you're in, Teacher Mu Yue teaches all of them thoroughly." After finishing the C list, another clone called B group, Asakawa Mikan, Nakamori Goichi. Most B group members were genin who had just graduated this year. They'd learned a bit about nature transformation, but were still inexperienced. When all the B names were called, Mu Yue didn't need to read an A group list. He simply gathered the remaining students into A. "This is great, I'm in A again," Shiranui Genma said, clapping Ebisu on the shoulder. Ebisu nodded. D. Last special training he'd started in B, but had moved to A after testing well. Starting directly in A this time felt comfortable. Morning practice will be chakra nature transformation. Afternoon will be taijutsu, Mu Yue told the A group. Because most A group students already controlled chakra well, the day's curriculum didn't include tree climbing or water walking. Nara Shiosui watched, bewildered. This wasn't what he'd expected. Mu Yue was already getting into teaching himself. Just as Shiosui thought Mu Yue might demonstrate one specific nature first, Mu Yue moved. He formed 6 shadow clones. 1 stood beside him. The other 5 flashed to positions around the clearing and began performing ninjutsu. Fire release. Fire dragon flame bullet. The first clone roared, forming hand signs and breathing a torrent of flames that tore through several large trees. Wind release. Cyclone. The second clone followed. A vortex of wind fed the fire, widening it into a growing sea of flame. The A group could feel the heat intensify. Water release, great waterfall technique. The third clone exploded a wave of water that extinguished the blaze, but far too much water remained, about to crash toward the students. Some A group members began to step back, embarrassed at the prospect of getting drenched. Asuma, however, stood unmoved like a mountain. He trusted Mu Yue's control. Earth release, earth flow wall. The 4th clone threw up walls of earth to stop the flood, while a 5th clone cut through one wall with purple lightning to divert the remaining water away from the students. The A group was stunned. 5 clones had unleashed 5 different, powerful elemental jutsu at once. Ebisu adjusted his sunglasses. Awed, he'd seen Mu Yue's taijutsu with Teacher Chen and knew how dangerous the after effects could be. Mu Yue, who could match Konoha's strongest instructors in taijutsu, was now showing mastery of 5 chakra natures. For many students, this confirmed they were in the right place. A teacher like this was worth learning from. If you want to train in one of the 5 great chakra natures, Go to the clone performing that jutsu. For yin release or other topics, come to me, the clone beside Mu Yue instructed. Not every ninja pursued the five natures. Some followed inherited secret techniques or specialized in genjutsu like kurenai yuhi. Mu Yue made room for them too. Nara Shiosui's team drifted toward the clone by Mu Yue's main body. They wanted secret technique guidance. Kurenai waved to her teammates and joined them. Ebisu went to the fire clone, Asuma to the wind clone. Soon the A group had chosen and begun training under the clone's instruction. Mu Yue made 5 more clones to lead the B group in nature transformation practice. The C group, mostly academy students new to special training, didn't start nature work immediately. Mu Yue reviewed the theory and continued chakra control drills with them. Many couldn't yet complete tree climbing, and only a few had mastered water walking. He was in no hurry to teach them nature transformation. He also didn't intend to teach nature transformation to all 3 groups at once. Creating that many clones would overwhelm him. He wasn't blessed with an Uzumaki constitution. His ability to create so many clones came from increased chakra reserves and the strength boost from his breathing technique. Mostly the clones taught, while Mu Yue's main body moved between natures and groups to provide guidance, trying to spread the benefit of his main teaching skill as widely as possible. By the time grouping finished, the morning class was nearly over. When Mu Yue dismissed them, many A and B students wanted more. They appreciated nature training, but felt the clones were a step behind Mu Yue himself. Tanaka should come learn from him too. They're both jonin, but the difference is huge, one student muttered. Heh, I'll tell teacher Tanaka, another laughed. He probably wouldn't want to come, though. In 2.5 hours, the students who hadn't known Mu Yue formed an initial impression. He knew many jutsu, and he taught well. Inuzuka Midori approved. Mu Yue's taijutsu knowledge helped improve her taijutsu even if he didn't know Inuzuka clan beast mimicry jutsu. Nara Shiosui planned to consult his family elders about yin release training. Ebisu, comparing teacher Chen and Mu Yue, found himself tempted to follow Mu Yue instead, not because Chen was bad, but because Mu Yue was outstanding. At the end of the day, Mu Yue dispelled all his clones. Fatigue and a flood of memories hit him, and he exhaled. Teaching like this was exhausting. He opened his system panel to check for class rewards and found none at first. Was the grouping period too long? Did we run out of class time? He wondered, but he wasn't upset. A change could be good. Even if he missed 2 introductory ninjutsu, a higher level reward would be worth it. After a long rest, training resumed at 2. A and B groups worked taijutsu and then began nature training. C continued chakra control. Those who could already climb trees and walk on water focused on taijutsu until practice ended at 6:30 p.m. After dismissal, students lingered to discuss their gains, and Mu Yue finally saw the system message appear. Completed a high-quality lecture. Evaluation. S. Rewards. Fire Release Chakra, Nature Transformation plus 10. Earth Release Chakra, Nature Transformation plus 40. Lightning Release Chakra, Nature Transformation plus 45. Wind Release Chakra, Nature Transformation plus 10. Water Release Chakra, Nature Transformation plus 20. Chakra Control ability slightly increased. Mu Yue stared at the list, thinking. An S-rank evaluation giving rewards tied to the teaching content was a pleasant surprise. He wondered why fire and wind only increased by plus 10 each when far more students had studied fire. Then he realized his fire release proficiency had already reached the perfect level, making further gains difficult. Earth and lightning were still below proficiency, so they gained more. This was his first S-rank evaluation. There should be another S-rank evaluation reward coming, he thought as he considered the day's results.